All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the MVD Board of Commissioners meeting. This is, what is today, the 19th of October 2020. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we'll do a roll call of commissioner members and their locations. We've got on Zoom, we've got Ken Ayers. Ken, where are you calling in from?
From Jake's Lane in Merrimack.
All right, we got Paul McLaughlin.
I'm at Peter Road in Merrimack.
Okay, and we're expecting John to...
John's having the same issue. He's
having Zoom issues.
Yeah, he just logged up. He typed 25 Windsor.
He's attending by text message. Okay, that
All right,
works.
so he can hear us, but we
Yeah.
can't see or hear him. When you work on that, we got Wolf and myself. We're from the MVD office with Ron and Jill. I'd like to just read a statement here. Due to COVID-19 and the state of emergency, the public participation will be offered by webinar. You may join the webinar by going to, there's a link, a Zoom link that's posted on the the mvdwater.org website. It's a very long link, and I don't think I want to read it here because you guys probably wouldn't be able to write it down as I read it anyways. But if you go to the mvdwater.org website and click on today's agenda, there is a web link there. And if you click on that web link, you will get access to the Zoom meeting. You can also call in by telephone by calling the following number. That number is 1-646-876-9923 and entering the webinar ID 867-6421-1870 and passcode 209573 if required. And again, all of the phone number, the webinar ID, the passcode, and the Zoom link is all on the agenda for the Merrimack Village District Board of Commissioners meeting for today, October 19, 2020. And that is on the mvdwater.org website. And lastly, as a courtesy, and we're very thankful to them, as Merrimack TV is recording this meeting, and it will be posted on their website at a later date and probably run on channel 20 as well. So with all those formalities out of the way, we are going to cover the finance human resources review. Normally that would be done with Michelle Holton, except that she was called away on an emergency. So we will postpone the analysis of revenue and expenditures report. That's item A on the agenda. We'll also postpone the bank account summary review. That's item B. And we'll go straight to item C, which is the senior accountant position. And that's a new position. Before we get into that conversation, I just wanted to let anybody know who may be watching that may have wanted to tune in to watch the discussion about the industrial flex building with Kevin Walker from Flatley Corporation. They have withdrawn from this evening's meeting, so I just wanted to let everybody know that. So we're not going to be doing any specific public comment related to that issue. So the first item that we're going to take up is going to be the senior accountant job description. And I could probably read that the record here.
You want to read the
You want to read it?
You want to read the whole stuff?
No, but
Okay.
figured that until we get other issues squared away.
That was plugged in.
Filling time.
All right. So, you want to give us a little bit of a rundown on that,
So this is,
Ron?
yeah, you have the job description in front of you. It'll be it will fall under Michelle, the HR director. We do, the candidate we do have in-house now, she's been, she was hired as a office clerical position. We brought her in, and she's actually been relieving some of the, working with Michelle and doing some of these duties now. So it was in lieu of creating this position. The salary range would be 24 to 36 an hour.
So it's not, it's basically, you would be thinking about moving her into that position.
That's correct, yes.
All right, because that's the one question I wasn't sure if it was a whole new additional staff member or.
No, she's here now.
Okay.
Brought her in under what we had currently in the salary schedule. We already had, we had her in the schedule. We had to get this, or this needs to be approved for the salary schedule to move her into that position, into this count position.
Okay,
And we do have budget, we do budget for overtime, so this will alleviate a lot of the overtime for the HR director. It's not going to eliminate all of it, but it will significantly cut down her overtime.
all right. I assume Michelle was definitely on board with this whole
Oh, absolutely, she was.
idea, yeah. It's not here, so I figured I'd ask
No,
you.
she was thrilled. She really is looking forward to some help.
I have two questions about that. It says here, works under the general direction of the business manager and superintendent, along with the finance and HR director. You just said actually that the position would report to the finance and HR director. Which one is it?
Ultimately, it all falls onto me, but she will report to the finance HR director.
Right. Well, I kind of would like to have that called out, and there's a number of reasons why. We're getting to a size where it would be good to have. You have how many direct reports? 20,
Yeah.
right? Ballpark 20, right? So, and then a good number is 5 to 7. So, personally, I think that person should not be reporting to you. That person should be reporting to Michelle, right? To have that breakdown in the structure. And it's just clear as far as, that doesn't mean that you can't, approach this person obviously with any, questions or advisories, but just in general to have a good structure, a solid structure, it would be good if that, in my opinion, and it's just a recommendation, right? Obviously in the end, it's more for you guys to decide, but all the vacation requests, PTO requests, and annual appraisals and all of that on annual one-on-ones that you want to have, and all these discussions would be good. We're not going to get any smaller, right? It's right with the new planes coming up. There's going to be more and more positions that we're going to have to add to operate these planes.
Yeah.
So it would be good to have that breakdown.
It's a very good point. In a lot of the job descriptions are written that way. But it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to start drafting them accordingly.
Creating a structure, right? Yeah. And the other question is, why is it a senior accountant? Do we have a junior accountant, or do we have an accountant?
It's a good question.
Skill levels.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. My concern is, are we giving it that job title because we want to shoot for a certain salary range? Because there's reference tables that require this to be a senior role, because otherwise we couldn't pay $24 to $36 an hour, right? I don't think that's an unreasonable amount, right, for a position like that, but 36 is getting up there, right? And
There's a big range.
it's a pretty big range, right, exactly. And I just want to make sure we're not giving this job title out just to fit some individual that we think is worth it, right? I'm not questioning the value of that individual by any means, but I just know that organizations tend to cater the job and the job description to the person, right? Let's say this person leaves us today. Do we need to fill it again with a senior accountant for $36 an hour, or are we going to be fine with a $22 an hour accountant, right?
Not with her, the things that we're having her do is New Hampshire retirement. She's involved
Yeah.
with Primex and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So she's also doing all the AP. She's doing a lot.
Yeah. So I'm fine. I just want to raise that point because it's a tendency for companies to do that, to cater job title and position to please an individual, and I want to make sure we don't do that.
Yeah, I don't,
So
it wasn't done on this one. It was the level of what we're having to do, so.
So that range, that salary range, is that, I mean, would we assume she would start on the lower end of that and work towards the higher end over a time period or something, or?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other commissioners out there have any questions on this?
Hi, Don. I was just curious. What is the average? I was trying to look up on my phone. What's the average senior accountant pay range? You know, for the state of New Hampshire, because I don't know. For me, $25 to $36 an hour for a senior accountant seems kind of on the low end. So I don't know. You know, kind of going with Wolf. Are we calling it the right thing as a senior accountant compared to like another accountant position?
Did all the research on it, and based on what she was looking for assistance with, that's what the job description how she came up with that. She also did research on salaries and schedules. She's got a whole packet of stuff there too, which we've gone over with you.
Okay.
Can we, is this something we need to decide tonight, or can we table this and maybe have Michelle fill us in with a little more detail? Is there more of an urgency of getting this approved tonight or anything, or?
No, I think we can. I don't believe there's any,
I'd be actually fine with approving it.
Yeah.
I think I said my part. What mattered more to me is, again, if you have 20 reports, you probably need to start giving some of them away to somebody else, just because it's not going to get any better, right? So.
All right. Well, if no one else has any other questions, I guess we can entertain a motion if you're willing to incline to do so.
I'll move to approve the job description. And so what does this do to our budget? Do we need to approve the budget for that, a change in the budget for that, or what are we approving?
no, it's just the
Just the
position.
job description.
And which would add, I think we need to approve the salary schedule as well.
That's not ready to be approved. though.
But that's
She has a couple of changes that she's making.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. So
No, I think we should.
so then I'm thinking this needs to wait till next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
To approve this, you'd need a salary schedule along with it. So yes, I would.
Probably hold that
That's
off.
fine.
All right, so you withdraw your motion?
Yep.
Okay. So, all right, so we'll table this to the next meeting, I think, unless you have something else to, go ahead.
I will make some changes as well to the, we might as well start on this one. So we'll get a clean copy out.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right, so we'll move this along to next meeting, guys, if you're okay with that. Next on the agenda is item number D, and that's the motion regarding acceptance of additional funds from St. Cobain in the amount of $100,000. Should probably give a little bit of background on this for any public that might be watching. This is related to our treatment plant for wells 4 and 5. As you may know, there was a settlement agreement reached with Saint-Gobain back in 2018. And that was based on an estimated construction cost that was developed as far back as 2016 and 17, I believe. And once that went out to bid and was constructed, the construction costs came in higher. There were some change orders. Saint-Gobain did not agree to fund 100% of that construction. So we felt that there were some items that should have been included in the settlement agreement. And there were reasons why the construction cost was higher, being a number of years after the estimated construction cost was calculated by our engineers, Underwood. So we approached Saint-Gobain and asked them if they would entertain a negotiation to try and determine if there was additional costs that they'd be willing to pay MVD. And we went back and forth on that for a couple of months. And recognizing that they are paying all of the ongoing maintenance at other facilities, one being Hoosick Falls, New York. Saint-Gobain is paying for the ongoing granular activated carbon changeouts. They paid for the construction of that treatment plant, something quite different than what we got in the settlement agreement. We mentioned all that to them. Saint-Gobain hired their engineer. We hired our engineer to kind of try to determine a cost number on what should have been in the construction costs, but that wasn't, like pavement and other kind of obvious things. But nevertheless, Saint-Gobain ultimately came back and agreed to give us an additional $100,000 towards that construction of wells 4 and 5 treatment plant for PFAS. And that money has been accepted, or it's in our
account.
It's in our account, and I think we just need a motion here to officially accept those funds, and that's what this is all about.
It's really just a cleanup.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just an accounting thing. But I figured I would explain all this because I think this is the first real public opportunity that we have made to the public that has happened. The $100,000 gift, I guess, if you want to call it, from MVD.
Which one?
I've talked about in other meetings, and
We might have. When did that come through? Sometime in May or June or something, right?
yeah,
Somewhere in there. So
And which while appreciated is a fraction of what the MVD deemed
right,
to be negotiable overruns.
right. We obviously were looking for more money than that. We thought we justified a higher contribution than that, but the settlement agreement's a done deal, and this was basically up to Saint-Gobain to just say, no, you're not getting anything, or here's some money out of the kindness of their heart, if you want to call it that. So that's where we're at, and the $100,000 number was presented by them. We accepted it, and so we're here tonight to officially accept that. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions or comments on this, or we want to
Did you see Kathy's?
go ahead with a motion.
Yeah, I don't think we can answer that in.
No, I can, we'll take public comment after this, I guess.
I don't know where John is. Jamie's trying to get into.
Does somebody want to make a motion to read this, this motion that was presented to us in text over here?
I'll probably should be making that motion because the other commissioners weren't on board at that time, aside from you.
Yeah, that's true. The
and
negotiations
Ken.
actually included
Well, I'm
myself,
sorry, Ken.
and Wolf.
No,
So-
Ken was part of it.
No, the negotiations were only two of us, specifically because
that's
it was
right.
not a meeting.
That's right. That's right. All right, so I'll move to accept Saint-Gobain additional funding The motion reads as follows. I move that the Board of Commissioners of the Merrimack Village District accept additional $100,000 offered by Saint-Gobain Performance Plastics to be used as a funding source for change orders as needed for the wells 4 and 5 treatment plant. Should really say also PFAS treatment plant, to be specific. If such change orders are less than $100,000, the remaining funds shall be used to offset funds that will be withdrawn from the capital reserve fund to pay the project costs.
So what we're doing here is we're saying we're accepting this $100,000 and we're going to use it to offset the change orders that project generated. Correct?
Yes.
So it's not just accepting the money, it's also saying we're going to apply it towards
Correct.
those change orders. All right, I'll second that. So motion made by Wolf, second by myself. Anybody have any further discussion on that? No further discussion, then we'll take a roll call vote and we'll start.
Dawn, could I just ask one question?
Sure.
That's going for change orders or the capital, original capital cost, correct?
Yeah, so it says if change orders are less than $100,000, the remaining funds shall be used to offset funds that will be withdrawn from capital reserve.
Okay, yeah, okay, perfect.
Is
Okay.
that your question? Right.
Yeah, because we're gonna be under 100,000. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure.
No, good question.
Okay, good.
It's going to offset whatever we paid out of capital reserve for the specific project.
All right, so we're going to vote on that. Roll call. We'll start with Ken Ayers. How do you vote?
I guess.
And Paul McLaughlin
Vote aye.
and Wolf
Yes.
and myself, yes. And we're still having trouble with John Lyons, the 5th commissioner. He apparently can hear us and he might even be able to see us, but we can't see or hear him. So I'm going to basically assume he is absent from this meeting and just viewing as a spectator at this point. So that's 4 votes in the affirmative, 0 against and 0 abstaining. So that motion carries. And the next item here was encumbered funds. I don't know if we have anything
Can we put that one next meeting as well?
able to have as well.
Yeah.
All right. And again, because Michelle Holton is absent, she got called out on an emergency. We're going to table this because she's got a lot to discuss on this issue. So we'll table the encumbered funds until the next meeting. There was one, I guess I'd take public comment now since there was a public comment. Should I read who it was from and everything?
Yep.
Yeah, there's a public comment from a Catherine Hodge. She's asking us, can you get more money as needed? The answer would be, as long as Saint-Gobain would be willing to negotiate and entertain the thought of submitting us more money, I guess. But at this time, we're not in a position to contact them for any additional money at this time. Does anybody have any other?
Nothing contractually will
Yeah,
obligate
right.
them to it.
Right. So they're not obligated for anything. This 100,000 was basically a donation on their part. And that's where it's at right now. We tried to get more money. So I think if they were going to offer us more money, they probably would have offered us more money before. So.
Yeah, I think that's all we
Anything
should be
else to
saying. I think that's
add
all we
on
should
that?
be saying at
Yeah.
this point.
Okay, so now we're moving into the regular session. As I mentioned before, the first item on the regular session agenda has been continued. So that was going to be a discussion with Flatley Corporation about the industrial flex buildings. And they have decided to withdraw that from tonight. They may be back to us at the next meeting. We'll see.
Yeah. I'm speaking with him tomorrow, so.
Okay, so Ron will touch base with Kevin Walker tomorrow and find out what his desires are. Any reason specifically that he gave?
He had some stuff to add to the plans, so And that was what he had basically said, and thought it'd be better to postpone and come back at a later date,
Okay.
next meeting or so.
All right. So I guess we can move on to the next agenda, which is a bunch of things to discuss with Underwood Engineers. With that, I'll leave it up to you guys to take it from here, from Underwood.
Peter's going to start, so thanks. Don.
Okay.
Yeah, Keith, your microphone's very low when you do have to talk. It's, you might have to check that. Yeah, so I'll update you on the well 4 and 5 project, 7, 8 project, the 2 project, and the asset management. And Tim will give you an update on Turkey Hill.
Okay.
So on the 4-5 project, I sent an email out to you guys a couple weeks ago, just noting that we started, the contractor, got the plant running, and we started pumping into the system on October 7th. And we are only doing that on a day, during work hours, because there were some bugs in the SCADA system that had to be worked out. Since that time, the bugs have been worked out, and we, the district staff has been pumping into the system on a 24-hour basis since October 14th. Okay. Actually, I think the plant did shut down on high tank level once, which it's supposed to do, but that has been pretty much running, full time since last Wednesday. So that's really good. So the site has been paved, and the grass is growing in great. I'm not sure what the contractor put in. I know you put in some special stuff into the seed mixture due to the drought conditions, and that grass has grown up really nice. So if you drive down there, the
Been down there?
looks
No, but I
beautiful.
would have needed it.
Yeah.
Good.
So that looks really nice. That we're in the process right now of putting together a punch list for them, and then they'll be working on that. The change orders, I know we have an item listed there, approving change orders up to $120,000, and I believe that is because Michelle could not find anywhere it said in the minutes, and maybe Jill can add a little more to this, where it said that you approved to go up to 120,000. I just want to let you know that I'm thinking we're going to be under 75,000 with our change orders, which is going to be less than 2% of the project. So
Great.
Okay.
yeah.
So we're still holding retainage on the contractor until all these bugs are worked out and the punch list is all completed and all that, right?
Yeah, right now you're the way DES does it is you hold 10% of the work up till 50% of the project, and then you don't hold retainage anymore. So technically, when you get near the end of the project, it comes out to be 5% of the total project. So they do the 10% up to 50%, sort of the front load it, so you get all your retainage up early. So you have right now 5%. I'm assuming that, hopefully, maybe by the end of the month we hit substantial completion, and once we hit substantial completion, the retainage goes down to 2%, and then you maintain that 2% for a full year. So just say it's October 31st is when they get substantial completion. October 31st of 2021 is when the warranty ends, and then you have to release that 2%.
So right now we're holding 5%, you said?
You're at 5% right now until they hit substantial completion. It stays
So
at
that
5%.
should be around what, 200,000? What was the total on this? Was it?
Yep, there's about
4
$4 million for the project, so it's around 200,000. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then once it goes down to the 2%, you'll be have about 80,000.
So what's the items that are left to not the whole punch Is it
Yeah.
anything significant? We're waiting on parts for months, or is this something that?
No, because we worked out most of the bugs last week, last Wednesday, before we started going online, on a 24-hour basis. We pretty much worked those bugs out of it. There's a couple little things that they need to do, but there's small things. So.
Okay.
Yep.
So all our feed systems and everything are going, the pH adjustment, fluorination?
Yeah, and that was one of the big ones. It's called a PID loop. Is how fast when you plug in a desired flow rate, it slowly seeks in to find that rate.
Yeah.
And a PID loop, it prevents it from making too high of adjustment and come down. It's just cycling, so it is more of a streamline to your flow rate instead of a wavy one. And so in that PID loop, they have, they can enter in values of how fast it changes and all that kind of stuff. So the values they had before made it change very slowly. So then that was very difficult to get the chemistry in for the pH adjustment and that type of thing. So once they adjusted that PID loop on Wednesday, that was pretty much the big issue. And then everything started coming into play. So.
And
Okay.
the whole backwash and the infiltration basins, that worked out well?
Yeah, it did work out. Yeah, so we have, we had the capacity in there to take all the water. It's, that the whole backwashing process of when we got the new GAC, that worked pretty much exactly how we were, anticipating. So.
How long was the backwashing?
The backwashing just took, it was done in the day as it, because when the carbon comes in there, once you load it in there, so you got to slurry it in so it's all wet to begin with.
Right.
And then once it's in there, then you backwash it for around 20 minutes, half an hour till it gets to a certain point. Then you start doing filter to waste. So the backwashing really just gets rid of the more
dust.
the dust and stuff from the GAC. And then the filter to waste just kind of cleans it up and gets it ready. And then, you're just monitoring that as it goes through. And then when it's to a certain water quality, then you can turn around and send it into your system. So.
And I think we talked about taking water samples right from the backwash, didn't we?
I think you did.
Yeah, we did do that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, so one of the things we were concerned about with our arsenic, and that came out within the, less than the 5 parts per billion, limit. So, so that was good. We did take some samples on the PFAS. One of them did not come out well because when they were backwashing the system, so you let them once you load up the carbon into the vessels, you let it sit there for 24 hours because you need to let it wet out, they call it, because it's little microscopic bubbles on the GAC. So those need, you need to let water, infiltrate into those and stuff. So then that, so you need to get rid of once all that air comes up to the top, and you flush it out. So usually let that sit for 24. So what we did on the first vessel, we took a sample before they started running water through it. On the second one, they actually had water running through it. So once we took it, it ended up being a cloudy sample, and then that did not give us, good results. But we do have the stuff on the first vessel, though.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Anybody have any questions on wells 4 and 5 or any other information to add? Wolf?
We need to make an announcement.
And we will. I was holding off a little bit until we got all the bugs worked out and we're actually running pretty much nonstop. I mean, so the way we're running now, so it's got to run for 7 days without any alarms. And then we can, for substantial completion.
Mhm.
So if there's any kind of an alarm at night, well, first off, we didn't have the SCADA, so we weren't running 24. Now that we are, if we have something in the middle of the night and, if we can't get it right off, I let them know that we can shut down and then operate, start up again in the morning type of thing. So I do plan on doing some sort of an announcement, but I was going to wait till we actually hit that substantial mark and a lot of the bugs are worked out, because they could be shut down if something came up for, not that it would be a whole day, but it could be periodically shut down while we're making adjustments and stuff. So
Okay.
This is I'm just curious, when do we do the first PFAS test to make sure that it's non-detect?
We did that already.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so we're going to be sampling monthly, or how frequently? Do we have a sampling plan on where we're sampling at the midpoint between the vessels or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that whole plan was already laid out, but I think we're
Yeah.
continuing to do monthly as you were, doing before. And then we'd be, testing at, because on each vessel is a sample port at 25% through the media, 50% through the media, 75% through the media. And then you can sample in between the two vessels because they're running series. And then that would be 100% of the first vessel and 0% of the second vessel. So you can start taking, and this is where we're going to have, or the operators are going to have to learn how, the how the PFAS sort of works through the GAC. So obviously if you start taking samples right now, in between the two vessels, it's going to be nothing, but you really want to start taking some of your samples at the 25%, and then you can start to see, how it's working through the GAC. Then if you start to see some of that, then jump, start doing the 25 and 50. And then, as you start to see something coming up in the 50%, you start doing 50 and 75%. Then you can start, as you start to graph some of these things for the different compounds and stuff, then you can start seeing how your, vessels, working with your system and your contaminants and stuff.
So right now, you guys are probably not under contract. You're pretty much going to be done with the construction part of that contract. And we don't have you signed up to do any of that oversight of the sample results and projections on things. So that's something we're going to need to handle on our own.
Peter,
Yeah.
And
I
Don,
mean,
to clarify, we do have a startup task, right, Peter? So we are with you during the warranty period. So
You're very quiet again, Keith.
all right. I might
That's
have to
very
fix this.
uncommon. That's better.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
We are under contract through the warranty period for you. So as long as it's not anything
Okay.
unusual and just sort of standard operating procedures for starting up a plant, we're with you. And that's to help, make sure startup goes well and any warranty items are resolved. So we're under contract through a startup task for
Right.
that.
Yeah,
All right,
I
good,
remember that. Yeah,
good.
That's
I wasn't
good.
aware, I forgot
No.
about that.
that was
Okay. All right, are we all good with wells 4 and 5? We can move on. Which one you want to do next?
We can go 7 and 8.
Sure.
Okay, so contractor is moving along with that one. The concrete walls have been poured. The door going into the pipe gallery has been cut out. They have backfilled the building, and they are waiting for the mason to come on site to start to do the masonry. They're also going to be putting in the there's some vertical piping that we need to put in there that's on the existing wall, but in the new GAC room, that has to go up. And so it ends up going up about 25 feet up in the air or so. And then that ties into the existing building. So they'll probably be putting some of that in there while they're waiting for the mason to come. So they're doing that. They're continuing doing the some site work, putting in hopefully the LP tank. We just got the shop drawing approved today on that. I know they wanted to start to do that work. So we'll be turning over that shop drawing first thing tomorrow to them. They are looking to, at least the schedule is having the vessels delivered at the end of March of this year. That's at least their schedule as of this point. And then substantial completion would be at the end of contract, which is scheduled right now to be August 2nd, barring any change orders that extends that. So end of the summer next year, you know that one should be online.
So they're gonna need to leave the roof off until March, you said?
That's what they're thinking about. The contractor has, played around with some potential things of, does he do something with putting up some part of a roof? But where the vessels are located and that type of thing, he's just concerned about if he puts up a part of the roof that's not attached to the building, and you get some of those winds that we had, a couple weeks ago, that could just end up, in the building, on the ground, and maybe damage something. So he's contemplating whether he wants to, close that in so he can do some interior work while he's waiting for the vessels to come in. But I think he's going to be, getting to do a lot of the work at the well 7 and 8 buildings that need to do that work, so he can be doing that later this fall. He's also contemplating putting on the siding onto the masonry before the roof's on there, but he has to just make sure that that fits in with the some of the temperature requirements for some of that material and stuff that they're putting on there and stuff. So yeah,
so you mentioned the masons, and
yeah,
how long is their work going to take? Are we going to be in a situation where we're running into the winter season on them again with the last job?
It might be into they would be getting in there. I believe I don't have that schedule right with me. Ron, wasn't it somewhere around like the end of October they would be coming in, or early November or something like that? Do you remember?
I do, and that's what I remember. And I thought it was only going to be if I'm saying this correctly, a couple of weeks for them to do what they need to do.
Yeah, I think it was a little more than that. I think it was gonna extend into the early part of December. So they would have to do probably some kind of tenting because of the cold weather and all that kind of stuff, but that would be part of their costs, to do the project. So
Yeah, so I was going to ask, because I know we had to pay the upcharge on that to avoid a 3-month shutdown on wells 4 and 5. I just wanted to make sure that we were looking at that so it doesn't happen.
That was a different scenario than what we have here, though. Yeah. So
all right, so that if there is a need to enclose and tent in the masons, that's something that's already should be included in the contract?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
It's good to hear.
So, yeah.
Is there going to be like a shutdown? And it just seems like if they're not getting the tanks delivered until, what did you say, March or April?
Yeah, end of March. So they're and that's what we're talking to him right now. And he was thinking that there might be a period where there would be no work that he could actually be doing in the winter. If he finishes the stuff inside the well buildings, he gets most of the. I think he'll have most of the site work done around the building itself. Maybe not that paving that we have to do. At the end of your existing paved driveway.
John's here.
But most of that will be done. So there might be a point where you really can't do too much in there, because you don't want to start doing some of that electrical work if it's all going to, be exposed to the rain and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. So is the delivery of the vessel as early as it can be in March, or is that something that he wanted? Is that something dictated by the schedule or just by the delivery date?
Yeah, that's dictated by the delivery date. So we got the shop drawn in a week ago. So we're reviewing that right now. West, actually, the contractor did a nice job. He actually went went through the shop drawing himself. You know, contractors are supposed to review shop drawings before they turn them over to the engineer to make sure that they meet the requirements. A lot of times contractors don't do that. They just pass them along, and Wes did a nice job looking through that and making sure that they did have some stuff, and he sent it back and had them modify it so it would it would be hopefully closer to complete, and we don't have as many comments. So that was good. So we're looking at that right now. Hopefully we're going to be turning that around quickly, and then we can get that into production. So based on anticipated review times and all that kind of stuff, that's when they're anticipating that the vessels would be delivered.
All right. I just wanted to note for the record, we got John Lyons that just must have got through your Zoom issue, and we got him
Jill
on.
sent it to me as a invite straight from Zoom, and that worked.
Oh, there you go.
So thank you, Joe.
So now that you're on with us, I'll let the record know that you joined us about just a few minutes before 6 o'clock, about 5:57. And where are you calling in from?
25 Windsor Drive.
All right, so we're all set. And happy birthday, John.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
We were just talking about well 7 and 8, if you didn't figure that out. And
Okay.
that sounds good. Does anybody have
I
any
do.
questions? Go ahead, Wolf.
Yeah, so Peter, we had a critical path at 4 and 5, and we have delayed the critical path a little bit with the enclosures, right, and the drives at the 4 and 5 Wells 4 and 5 project. With COVID seeming to resurge here in fall and possibly winter, I'm a little concerned we're going to see the same delays with those control cabinets. Can we ensure that we put whoever is supplying those on notice that they might want to be proactive in finding a supplier that is not as quick to shut down their production plants?
Yeah, so we were aware of that too, and we were talking to the contract. So the VFDs, I believe those were just approved, or there's has to be resubmitted for a small item, but that shop drawing is just about done. And then that's what we're recommending, is to get that order in there and get those so we don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, that would be
that's
good.
And so with this project, it's different than the 4-5 one, where you had to get a transformer, main disconnect panel and all that. What we're really doing in the plant is we're really just tying into the existing panels with some additional circuits. So the main two items we need are the two VFDs. So we want to so once this gets approved, we want to make sure that we tell the contractor, make sure your subcontractor knows to order this ASAP, so we don't have an issue with COVID on that.
Yeah, very good.
Even if there's a need for us to, I'd like to actually get the equipment. I don't know how big it is, but if we can even store it somewhere. And
yeah, these are smaller. So the ones on 4-5, they're the well 5 one, which is a larger one. I think that cabinet is like 48 by 30 by 7 feet tall. So that's a big cabinet. It's a heavy one too. And 4 is a little smaller than that. The VFDs that we have for 7 and 8 are smaller, because even though your capacity, your pumps, gallons per minute wise, is higher than 4-5. The horsepower on them smaller, because you have a smaller head, because you're only pumping through the treatment vessels into a clear well, and then you're high lifting out of that.
Yeah.
So they're smaller, they're wall mounted ones. So he does have a place to store those. I know Wes has a storage, little, whatever they call it, cubes down there. I don't know if he wants to put it in that, or he wants to have his electrical contractor keep him at his place. But, I would recommend that they do that too, is to get them as soon as possible, store it, if they provide us with an invoice, typically, the contract says that all stored material, shall be brought to the site if you wanted to get paid for it. We have approved that under other, situations where we do approve stored materials, at a different location. And if you feel more comfortable having it stored at your location so you can actually have eyes on it, we can, talk to them about that. If they, they can also, give us some sort of a letter saying, they have it at their place and that type of thing. If
Yeah.
we feel comfortable that way, we can, certainly do that. So as long, then that way they are not out dollars, because we're going to be paying them for the materials. So it's, money in, money out for them. And then now they have their components sitting there. So.
Yeah.
We just have to watch the conversions of risk.
Yeah.
We have to watch that. If it's stored off-site, if it's stored at their site, then we have to make sure that they're insured.
And then the contractors, he has insurance on the whole thing. So if something does happen to it, then it would be his responsibility.
Yeah, and corrosion is a big problem, especially over the cold and wet months here.
Right.
We got to make sure the stuff is properly wrapped in desiccant, with desiccant and stuff, and
yeah, that's why I'd recommend. I think it would be better if it was stored at the contractor's, facility that it's, that it's somewhat heated, or if you wanted to take it to yours and have it. I don't know how heated your garage is, but having it in the little storage shed at the job site is probably not the best location for it.
Yeah, agreed.
But we'd be willing to make an exception, or I think I would, to make an exception to have him order that ahead of time and store it and not have to wait till it's installed or on site to get paid for it, So
Yep.
I know he's worked, Wes has worked with us when he got the building permit ahead of time and all that. So, that's a good faith thing. And I want to be here for him when he needs us as well. So
For sure.
definitely mention that to him.
Okay.
Whatever those lead items are that we got burnt on the last job, we can get those ahead of time. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's the only one we got burnt on, because the other ones were the transformers and the
We
main
don't need 'em,
disconnect
yeah.
and stuff that we already have. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Any other questions on wells 4 and 5?
7, 8.
7 and 8, sorry. All right, if not, then feel free to move on to the next topic.
Okay, so then that would be well 2. And
Okay.
so we're proceeding with design. So I'll give you the schedule, because I think that's the, your biggest, probably the thing you're interested in most. So we had a meeting with our design team, and sort of now, to kick off to move from 60% design to a 90% design. So we are actually going out to the well 4-5 project on Wednesday with the design team to look at some of the things that could be improved from the design of the 4-5 plan. So we're going to look at some different issues and, what can we do to fix them? So we're going to be doing that on Wednesday. We're going to be having, I have coordination meetings set up with them for the next couple weeks on Fridays, with the goal of having our submission to you around November 10th for the 90%, and then hoping to get review comments back from you before Thanksgiving. And then we would compile those comments and the ones from DES, because we would send it to you and DES. Compile all those comments, do an internal review for ourselves, and then submit those comments to our sub-consultants, looking to have the 100% design completed. So we got to work through the holidays and where Christmas ends up and all that kind of stuff. We're almost really losing like 2 weeks at the end of the year. So we're looking to have that January 8th as the 100% submission, and then submit it into you and DES again. And because you looked at the 90%, we're hoping that the review could be limited to a week on that. And then we would get comments back, make final changes, and advertise the project for bid around January 22nd. And then we'll be opening up the bids, somewhere at the end of February, and then looking to sign a contract with the contractor during March and be ready to start construction in April. And, with this project, it's probably a little bit bigger than the 4-5 plant, a couple of additional vessels and stuff like that, a little more site work. So we're thinking that this is going to be a little bit longer than the year that we had for 4-5. So it's, we haven't set a, number of days on it, but just say it's going to be a 13 or 14 month project, so if it's a 14-month project, it's going to carry you to the end of May-ish or something like that. So this facility should be online, before the summer of 2022. So
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's what we're shooting for that, and it looks like we're going to hit it. So I'm happy about that. So
What was the resolution on the electrical load? We were looking at a couple of different options on that.
yeah, so we're looking at that, and there's a couple things I wanted to look at. That we a couple loose ends we don't have done. So I don't have anything for you right now on that, but we're pretty close to finishing that one.
All right, so you're still going to come back to us on that when you get additional information?
Yeah.
That's not going to hold you up on the rest of the design that
No, and what I was hoping to do on that was just send out an email out instead of taking
another
board meeting time. I could just send out some emails of some stuff, explain it and that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have any questions on well 2 treatment plant design?
I'm good.
Okay.
Like, I'm gonna just keep going to asset management, and then I'll let Tim jump in right after that for Turkey Hill. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. So then on the asset management plan, so because you're getting funding from the drinking water SRF and the trust fund, part of their requirements there is to update an asset management plan. So you do have a nice inventory of your assets. Dave, I'm not sure if Dave did the whole thing or if he updated it, but he has a nice listing of all your assets that you have right now. The thing that you do need to do is you want to need to add in the components from the new facilities, which we can help you with, and that's going to be part of this plan. But the plan also requires you to, some other components in there. So one of them will have to have a level of service workshop. So then you kind of talk about some of the things that you want to accomplish and that type of thing. So there's some other things that go along with it, and putting together everything into a formal document that does get submitted to DES. So in your packet, you should have a proposal for us. I forget what ESR number it is. I think it's 56.
Yep.
And that would be the work that we do. So this round of asset managements, so the asset managements are due it on before May 31st of every year. So you're going into the round where you're getting approved this year, and then your asset management plan will be, due in May of 2022. So roughly the time that the well 2 plant is going to go online, this will be due. So what we're going to do is, we already have, we know what's in the well 4-5 building. We know what's going to be in the well 7-8 building. We can put all that together. So we can put all that into the plan. And then once the design's done and the construction starts up on well 2, we're going to know what components are going to be in there, even though they might not be in there at the time that we're doing the report. Then we can, finalize things, during the winter of 2022, and be ready to submit that to DES by May. Instead of waiting until well 2 building's done and then doing it. We know what's going to go into the building and that type of thing. So I think we can certainly completed in that fashion.
Is this like a preventive maintenance plan kind of thing, or?
It's somewhat so. So what you do on that is you take all your assets, and then we try to lump some things together. We don't get into every single nut and bolt and every single tiny component, so we'll talk about like a chem feed system, like phosphate feed system, and we might go look at a storage tanks a little bit different than the pumps and that, but you kind of lump some of the stuff together because your list will be too big. But you take each component and you give it a dollar value and you give it a design life, and then you figure on when you have to replace those. So it gives the district an idea of how much they have to be spending, to kind of keep the system up and up to snuff type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you can use it in along with the CIP, but it really doesn't replace the CIP because the asset management typically looks at things in blocks of 10 years of what you need to do. So one of the reasons I think they have instituted this is there's some systems that don't really pay attention to what they have, and they go, okay, we got these pipes in the ground, they're not causing us any problems, so I'm not going to worry about it. But the problem is, your pipes are getting older and older and older, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
you get to a point where you have all these pipes, they're all 100 years old, and you have no money to replace them, and you haven't made any plans to put money into a capital reserve account to start paying for them and that type of thing. So this kind of sort of pushes people to start looking at there. And I don't think that's the case with the district. I think you guys are pretty proactive. You understand what's out there. Your workers, have, the good inventory on that type of stuff. But there are communities that don't do that. And it is a nice tool for, some kind of planning to kind of look into the future and see what you might need to do. And then you kind of combine that with your CIP, to come up with your projects you're going to be, replacing, updating, and that type of stuff.
Okay. So you mentioned in here that, so this is actually a requirement of DES.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So as part of the loan, you have to have this plan. Yeah.
Right.
And then when you go for any other SRF loans, they say, do you have this plan? And if you do, and then they give you some kind of ranking of it, how much information you have in it, I'm not exactly sure their ranking criteria they do, but you do get ranked on it. It's not just a yes or a no. You get different values for it. So as you're applying for different funding, if you have good grades on this, then it pushes you up more into, the funded area. So what Luis Ordurno, who's the person at DES that runs this, he wanted to, he was telling us at a meeting that I went to in another community. He says, we want to reward the communities that are actually proactive in doing things. In the past, the systems that would get the funding were the systems that are falling apart. So if you don't care about your system and you let it fall apart, then you say, wow, these guys need a lot of help. You get the funding. But then there's another community that's doing a nice job keeping up with their system, keeping good records and all this kind of stuff, and knowing when things need to be replaced. They don't get any money because their system doesn't really need it. So this way it helps you out in the ranking system. If you do something, do a good job on something, you're going to get more points, and it's going to push you up on the ranking scale and get you into that funded section. So.
Okay.
So $40,000 is about 20 days, right? Ballpark. And that's for 7 and 8, 4 and 5, well 2, and the Turkey Hill booster station. That's all covered in that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And including expenses, right? If I saw that right.
Yeah, and then it is a 20%. I mean, 20,000 is a 50% match. So you only end up paying the 20,000 of that 40,000.
If you get the grant.
Yes, and yeah, I think it's very high that you're going to get the grant. Yeah.
Can I just say something? I don't know if you mentioned this, Peter, or not. We do have a asset management plan. This is just an addition.
Right.
Because.
Yeah, we're updating it. Yep, to include all that. Because they have some of the different requirements on that. So we're going to be, because because Dave did put together a nice, inventory of all the stuff you have.
Well, I'm just looking at it, it's 20 days of work ballpark, 20 to 30 days, but it's 3 big, very large systems in the booster station. And
Yeah.
I think that's pretty reasonable.
What's on page 1, 3 lines up from the bottom, it talks about creating a geometric network.
Yeah.
Can you just
Yeah.
explain that a little more? I'm not exactly sure what that refers to. Is that a distribution system or is it?
Yeah, let me pull that up.
I think Margaret uses GIS, and it is somewhat of a standard thing. So I think there are some graphics that she tends to develop. But to be honest with you, I'd have to double check. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay, but I'd have to double check with Margaret on what that means. But I do know she likes to interface the GIS system and use graphic representations of things. So
it's probably generating a graphic presentation as part of the asset management plan.
Yeah.
Oh, she definitely does that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm guessing is her fancy word for that. But we probably have to get back to you on exactly what she means.
Yeah, I tried to look it up. I couldn't see it. Yeah. But yeah, so what she'll do is on like on your distribution system, she'll give you multiple maps and stuff. So one of them's gonna, and it'll be color coded for age of material. Then there'll be another map of, what type is it? Ductile iron, PVC, AC pipe, that type of thing. But they also look at, so as you rank your system, you look at some different components such as criticality, so how critical is a component, and then also likelihood of failure and, impact of failure and that type of thing. So she'll have those color coded differently on, so obviously you're, a main transmission line going through town, just say, the one running up Continental Boulevard and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's a main line coming up. So if that goes out, that's very critical. So that's going to rank very high in the criticality part. So then she has, the maps color coded that way too. So there's a lot of, you can look at your system differently compared to just seeing a pipe on a map. So.
Okay. Any other
Can I ask one thing
questions?
on this, Peter?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is this, it seems like it's pretty complicated. Is this something that we couldn't do in-house?
You could do it in-house, there,
I know Ron was talking. I don't know if he did the last one. He mentioned we had one.
yeah, so there's, by doing, we have a pretty good experience. Margaret has done a ton of these throughout the state. So we kind of have somewhat of a system set up to do that. So we could certainly work through the whole program a lot easier than you would, having not been able, not having done it.
Who did the last one? Was it you or was it?
It was Underwood that did our last one.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that was just done on the distribution system. It was one of the first done in the state. The state has had, and this is not a reflection on Merrimack, but if you want to look at that, it's something that the state would allow, but their experience on it has not been very good. And it's not necessarily a reflection on Merrimack, but it is something that you're obviously permitted to do your own asset management plan. You don't have to hire a consultant. But it is something that's been pretty well.
I mean, I'm definitely in favor of it. I've seen Louise's
Yeah.
talks many times, and I think it's a great way to plan for the future. So I think it's a good thing to do for sure.
Yeah, Dave Fredrickson actually just texted me in. I guess he's listening online. He said that that he has created a geometric network for, this year, and then he's currently learning about it. So he's coming up to speed on that. So,
All right.
And John, this is definitely done in conjunction with your staff. I mean, we don't do this in a silo. It takes Dave's role in developing this thing together. So.
oh, there's no doubt Dave's going to be involved with that. Yeah. Yep. And Ron, yeah. Well,
Okay.
Yeah, we should probably mention who that is. Dave Fredrickson.
Dave Frederickson is our
Oh, sorry.
operations manager.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know.
MVD employee.
So I would expect we would have a more robust ArcGIS system and maps and stuff of our distribution systems and treatment plants and whatnot. Is this?
yeah. And then, Ron might be able to answer it. I'm not sure exactly what you have. I know Margaret did speak to Dave and talked, and they talk at a higher level than I can talk on the ArcGIS side of it. So we have a book now. And so one of the things I asked Dave when he talked with Underwood or Margaret, I guess I envision our GIS kind of linked in a way and a little bit more user-friendly, not just
That's
to
what
have
I'm wondering. Yeah.
in more of a, it's a database. So to be connected and linked and I guess, I'm going to say it again, just be a little bit more user-friendly and something that we can access. And so that was one of the things he did express to her. And Dave's done an awesome job with the GIS. I had started out with it years ago and he's brought it to another level. So it'd be nice to be able to get that all tied together.
Is that the system that has like service connection shutoffs and all that mapped? I know I saw them go up and down my street, GPS the locations of all of that stuff, and that's in some database somewhere that's being added to. And is this some of this work going to kind of make that a little bit more robust information or whatever?
I don't know if we make that any more robust, but I think I guess where I see it is linking if you make changes on one, it talks it. That's kind of what I see.
Okay.
So it's kind of in one place. It's not a book here and
Right.
on the computer here or on a server here.
I mean, this is important for succession. I mean, someday we're all going to be, retiring. And
when I first started here, we were all on index cards. You wanted to find a service, a water main, a valve. You went upstairs, you looked opened up the file, and you just started scrolling through, and that's it. Pull a card and copy it, and you would go out and now it's at our fingertips out on this.
on iPads and whatnot in the field,
Yes.
trucks and all that. Okay, good.
yeah, so we wouldn't really be doing anything with the service ties that you have and that type of thing, so I think a lot of that stuff has already been incorporated into the plan already. And, there would be anything that we do, if there's a little service or something, with the building that we're doing or, valves or hydrants along with along with these treatment plant projects, that would be added into it. But most of that stuff's already included into your database and you already have that.
Okay. All right, so you're probably looking for us to give an approval of this proposal.
Yes.
Again, if anybody else, other commissioners wants to make the motion on this, so be it.
I'd move it. I think it's a great idea.
All right. So you want to read just for the record, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but it's ESR number 56.
Yeah, I'd move we accept the proposal from Underwood, ESR number 56, to complete an asset management plan by the deadline of December 4th.
All right, and those funds are coming from the budget, or we have to take that out of any reserve account?
Let's go with reserve on this.
It's really
And
part of-
before you,
it's-
I can offer too, sorry. I mean, this is I keep saying it at these meetings, but I would view this as a project-related expense too, so.
Right.
Okay.
And then I'd
It's-
like
it's-
to add to that, we're not completing it by December. So we're gonna complete an application for you,
Yeah,
to the state. And then once you get the funds, then we'll do the project. So this includes the application plus the project. So it would be completed by May 31st of 2022.
Yep.
right.
But the application is due this December. So we just need to get that.
And that's the
portion in.
application for the grant, you're saying, right?
No. Well, yeah. On December
yeah,
4th,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I do have, Pete, isn't the asset management grant a matching grant?
Yes, that's what I mentioned. It was 50%. Yeah, 50%. Yeah.
So 20,000 from the grant, 20,000 from,
Oh,
MVD.
right
Yeah.
there.
yeah, and what fund is this coming from again?
So it would be out of the SRF funding or the,
NHDS Water Asset Management
this
Grant
is-
Program.
yep.
All related to the warrant articles?
That's right. No, actually, that's right here. NHDS Water Asset Management Grant Program.
Right, but I think they're asking where our money's coming
Yeah.
from.
Ours is coming from the warrant articles, yeah.
Yeah, from the,
So as he said, project related, so that means we'll just take it out of the budgets for the various treatment plants that we're upgrading? building?
yes, it was submitted as an expense. Is
Okay,
that correct, Keith?
That's what I would do. Yep.
all right, so motion made by John. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
I think Paul got there first.
Yeah, I think so.
Snooze, you lose, Ken.
All right, second by Paul, and we'll do a roll call vote. So we'll start with John.
Right,
John votes in favor. Paul?
Aye.
Paul's in favor. Ken? Ken's in favor. Wolf?
Aye.
And myself, Don Preventure. So we are 5 in favor, 0 opposing, and 0 abstentions. Actually, did we have any chat comments on?
That's what I was just checking. There was none.
It was none, okay. I just, before we moved on, if someone had a question on anything we've been talking about, I figured I'd ask the public now. If somebody wanted to chime in with any questions. We got a chat thing, we can check that, and I think we also have a phone line that we can check, but I don't know that we can see that from here or not. But it doesn't look like we have any
Well, number 12 is probably Dave, right? So
Any
there
questions?
really shouldn't be anybody else. It says 12 participants, so
participants.
when you click on that thing, it shows you.
On it?
Yeah.
Oh, you have Catherine Hodges still on there.
Is she still on?
Yeah.
Jill, Ken, Paul, Amanda.
Doesn't look like anyone else is.
So Dave usually views he streams it from Town Hall Streams.
Okay. All right, good. So I guess that's all set, right? We approved that, so we can move on to,
Turkey Hill Booster.
yeah, you want to do Turkey Hill Booster update? That was going to be, Tim was going to do that?
Yes, I can do that. So, so the site has been, somewhat quiet for the last couple months, but we got the station delivered last week, Wednesday, and it was successfully placed on Thursday. Took about half the day on Thursday to replace it. And everything, the critical components look good. The alignment of the suction and discharge pipes align well with the yard piping that's already in place, so that's good. It sits really nice and square on the station pad, sits where it's supposed to go. So all that went well. There are some items that Penta took note of, and Carlson Systems, they were on site as well. They're the vendor for the pump station. So they noted all of, there was a little bit of damage during delivery to some of the trim. And there were some kind of crooked lights on the inside, and one of the exit lights were a little crooked. So there's things like that Penta made note of and Carlson made note of, and so that's all going to get fixed and get cleaned up. So that was the station. There was a few things that we wanted to clear up last week. It was the station and the utility pole location. So we met up there on Friday with Eversource. Ron was there from MVD. And we were there, myself and Joel Moulton, and then John Brown from Penta. So we met with Eversource. Eversource didn't like the plan location for the new pole. We needed a new utility pole to put up a new transformer to power the new station. So Eversource didn't really like it. It was kind of a crowded location. And we're on site, and so we selected a new location that was on the same side of the access road as the existing booster pump station, and a little bit closer to the existing booster pump station. So it ended up being a better location. Everybody likes it. And so Eversource is going to get moving on getting that installation completed. So that was resolved. And now that the station's there, we had some discussions on grading, on how the road was going to come out and how the site grading was going to go. But those discussions really started when only the foundation walls were in place. So the road looked really high. So there was a 14-inch slab that went on top of that, and then the station sits on a 10-inch skid. So that brings it up another 24 inches. And so now it looked a lot better to everybody. The grades all kind of looked better, and we made a site decision to blend it in with a concrete pad between the station and the road. So we all were in agreement with that. I believe Ron was in favor of it. He liked it. So we looked at it, and that sounded like it was going to be a no-cost solution to the grading there. And then that's kind of where we're at right now. The electricians are going to get in there hopefully this week, maybe next week, to start to look at pulling new wires from the station all the way up to the tank. That's kind of another critical point. And there's a little bit of investigation that they have to do. There's already existing wires inside the existing conduits, and so they have to run new wires in those conduits. So there's been some concerns about doing it, but they're going to give it a shot and see how it goes. And that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
The site, and I think now that the station's there, it's really going to start moving, and they're just going to try and get it wired and up and running. We're prepared for shutdowns. There's a couple of shutdowns that will be needed when they power up the new station. There's also a 45-degree bend that will go in, so MVD is aware of the shutdowns. They'll fill the Parker tank the way we did earlier in the summer to prevent any service loss. And so everything's going well. So I don't know if there's any questions.
I got a quick question, Tim. So when I was out there this summer to look at the station, it seemed like it was, pretty much a critical need to get this done. Is there anything that we could do to have the electricians put this on the rocket sled on rails, as my lab director would say?
To make it a priority is what you're asking?
Yeah.
I think now that the station is there, the contractor and the subs are really going to start digging in. So yes, we'll keep on them and keep it moving along. So they do have a substantial completion date at the end of December, and contractors very well aware of that. So they're really going to press to get this finished up. There's a few items that may get kicked to next spring. The paving, if final paving has to get done, if it gets too cold, then the paving may have to come in spring. But we're definitely looking to have the station up and running by January.
Okay.
Are the contractors optimistic about that substantial completion date of end of December?
I I'm getting mixed messages from the contractors.
Okay.
So I think the guy on site, he seems confident that they can get it done. The superintendent seemed confident. John Brown, he seems confident that he'll be able to get it done. So kind of following his take on it, because he's got a sense of what his subs can do and how fast they can get it done. So
Okay. The tank mixer has nothing to do with this project, right? Are we thinking about doing a mixer up there or something?
it's in parallel. So that's been completed and installed.
Oh, it has, okay.
Yeah, it's been in for a little bit.
Oh, good. I wasn't aware of that, I don't think.
There's some tank cleaning that they did, and they did some tank improvements as well. They replaced the hatches and replaced the primary dome that's on top. And they've done conduit hangers all the way up. So that way when the electrician comes in. So we coordinated both projects together so that DN Tank could do as much as they could to make it easier for the electrician to come in and hang the conduit and get it ready to wire up the mixer and everything tied in.
So are we gonna need to dewater that 4 million gallon tank to do any work up there and to use the Parker tank as a substitute, or is it just gonna be offline for a little while? Is the
No,
tank
it
gonna be
should.
offline?
No, we shouldn't affect Turkey Hill Tank at all. We're just gonna do a bacteria sample. We'll fill it, do a bacteria sample on Parker Road tank and bring that up online just for ahead of time before the shutdown. And then we'll let either we can keep it going for the winter, see how it works out, or we can use up that water in Parker tank and
So Parker's gonna work with the Hutchinson tank. All right, so that's why we need more capacity in the high pressure zone.
yeah,
Okay,
the way we have to isolate the system.
we won't be able to pump up in
Right, basically we're,
a short time.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that
And
makes
we'll
sense.
keep the existing station running, so that way if we need more water, in those tanks, we can get the old station up and running and fill those tanks as needed.
All right, but we definitely need to bring Parker tank online. I was just wondering if.
well, if there's a shutdown, we're not gonna be able to, I think we gotta take some of that work out, the piping out, disconnect it from the new system. That would be the shutdown, if I remember correctly.
So there was 2 shutdowns. Yeah, one was to hot power over to the new station, and then the other was to put in that 45-degree bend. So what's happening there is the existing station has a pipe coming out of it, and then it has a bypass pipe coming right by it. We are utilizing that bypass pipe for the primary main to go from the new station to Hutchinson Tank. And so in order to demo the old station at that connection point, so the existing station, bypass pipe come together in a Y, we're removing that Y and putting in just an elbow. And then the old station can be demoed. So that'll be the second shutdown.
So the need for Parker is when we do that Y, we're not gonna be able to run the booster. We're gonna have to isolate it to dewater it to.
But the tank will still be online for the low pressures network.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah, those are the 2 separate.
Yeah, because that's all we got on the low pressure.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
No, that stays.
all right, that's what I was wondering.
Okay.
All right, I think we're good. Any other questions on this, guys? No. Commissioners, okay? Anybody else? I guess we can move on. Thanks, Tim.
Okay, thanks, guys.
And we can move on to what we were gonna do next. Rates and production consumption. I think where Keith wanted to jump in on this one, is that right?
Yep.
All right.
I had a few maybe thoughts and suggestions, and then we could open it up for discussion. I broke up the next 4 bullets into sort of 2 groups. Non-revenue water and seasonal variations first. I know this came up at some of the previous meetings, and with an eye towards why is there so much seasonal variation in terms of gaps between what we're producing and what we're selling and consuming. And it's always been a little bit of a head scratcher. We've looked at it a little bit, and what I've come to realize too is if you're looking at that trend chart that shows production and consumption, the production's in blue and the consumption's in red. That is a true comparison of what the wells are producing versus what we're selling to the consumers. It's not adjusted for consumption that we authorized, but that we don't bill for. Residuals at the water plant, hydrant flushing, and various things, which we do track in our water balance, but that chart may be a little, first thing is it's probably a little bit of an overstatement of a gap because it has not been corrected for unbilled, call it authorized consumption. And some of that consumption, when we look at it closer, we're realizing probably occurs, or a bulk of that consumption probably occurs in the summertime. We don't flush in the winter, for example. We tend to flush in the, in the non-freezing months. And street sweeping occurs also. We track the water we pick up for street sweeping, but that occurs in the summer. So what I'm getting at is, I think this is worthy of an additional investigation. I know we need to figure out exactly how it's breaking down, but my suggestion is, after chatting a little bit with Ron as well, it's probably worthy of an audit or a little bit more of a, investigative work as to how these unbilled consumptions are happening, so that we can update the trends a little bit and truly look at what is happening seasonally before we start chasing what we think are, say, illegal or unauthorized consumption. So the thought is, I think an updated audit is probably worth doing. There's been a lot more work since we did our first lost water effort in terms of tracking costs. I mean, tracking consumptions and tracking unbilled consumptions. There's a lot of information that's being collected, and I think it might be worthy of taking a closer look at how that changes or adjusts the trends that we're seeing.
Do we have any unmetered consumption from our system? Or
Ron can probably weigh in, and I asked that similar question, and I think we don't think so.
I mean, when we flush hydrants, do we have a meter on there measuring how much water we use or anything? Or
We side gauge, and then, we kind of come up with the best we can, because it's not 100% accurate. Our diffusers are probably 15 feet or so away from the hydrant. But if you side gauge the hydrant, it gives you a pressure, and you can kind of cross that over to a chart to get your GPM.
Yeah. Just wondering, how about the accuracy on some of that stuff? Would that be causing us to inflate some of these unmetered or unbilled losses?
I mean, they're pretty close. We've worked. I'm not saying it's not. It could be, but I don't know if.
So you'd probably need a pretty large.
So we side gauge the hydrant, and let me rephrase that. We also have we customize the diffuser to have it as it goes atmospheric. So it's as close as we can get it to that pressure before it leaves the diffuser. So I don't know if we could get it any closer than that, but it's.
Yeah. What's the size of the hydrant discharge? Like 5-inch or 4-inch?
It's a 6-inch.
6-inch, huh? I mean, it'd be pretty expensive to
I'm
have.
sorry, it is a 4-inch.
4-inch.
4-inch pump board. Yeah.
Could we put a 4-inch mag meter on there when we flush, and that would measure the gallons that way? Or I don't know if that would work the same or not. I don't know if whatever we're doing is typically what's done, then I guess that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out.
A lot of people do it different ways. I guess I mean, I'd have to look into that. I don't know if it would slow any flows down. You try to achieve certain flows for different size pipes, so.
Yeah,
just the order of magnitude. Okay, so I mean, we're talking about 30% losses, or let me rephrase it: 30% unbilled, not maybe unaccounted for, but 30% unbilled in summertime.
And we might be able to work those numbers back. Flushing does take a lot of those. Is a lot of that. We do use a lot of water flushing.
Right.
And again, there's certain flows you achieve to clean the pipes. I mean, we might be able to dial that back a little bit. Maybe
time it better too.
Maybe using more than we need to clean. So what I'm saying is we can really take a look at that to use less water.
And can we time it, for example, for early spring and late fall, right?
We do try to do that. I mean, it does stretch, and we actually do it in two different. So we do the regular pressure zone first, and that's usually we try to start in April once we get through any of the freezing nights and all that, and it goes however long it takes to get through the regular pressure zone.
And maybe I'm looking at the wrong chart, right? But when I look at that chart, it just screams bloody murder. It really does.
Yeah, and you're right, it does, but I don't think it's I think it needs to be corrected, Wolf, or adjusted to account for the things that we know are happening, but you don't bill for them.
And maybe also with higher resolution. I mean, we're looking at 15 years here, right? And we're only looking at, I mean, the fluctuation between summer and winter is obviously very, very drastic. So maybe we need to really look at the last 2 years and break them out in the readings that we have and just make the chart speak clearer language than maybe what this is doing right now.
Yeah, and I remember back when we first started doing this, and I think it's become it's always been a red flag to us as why is it's doing this. But when I did some quick calculations, and these blue peaks that are above your red peaks, where you're getting that 30%, I'm not guessing, I've calculated roughly that about a third of that we know what it is. So I think we need to make those adjustments. And then the other one, we have monthly production data from your sources, but we only have quarterly consumption data from your meters. You read 3 zones 4 times a year, so they rotate in these 3-month cycles. So we have to make certain assumptions on a quarterly meter read for that neighborhood or that area on what really happens on the previous 3 months. And we've used a simplified model, just divide the quarter by 3 months and say each month was the same. So I think there may be some error built in there too. And so that's why I'm suggesting, and to your point about the meters, Dawn, and paying attention to the hydrant flushing, all of that I think counts. And I think we need to go through some of those things to see if we can get a graphic representation here that better represents what's happening before we go to the next step. That's what, and an audit, I mean, just going through some of those things really isn't that much of an effort.
And isn't there,
that would be a good first step.
Isn't there also, like in early spring, some situations where we, like when somebody fills their pool, are we?
That's they're purchasing that.
They are.
That's accounted for as well. Whether if it's a hydrant hookup, yes, that's billed as well. Or if they fill it from a hose from their outside faucet, we're capturing that one way or another.
They are.
So all those individual numbers, even 10, 15 pool fills are being.
Yep.
Those gallons are being added into this, and we're not losing out on that information.
Yep. If it's a hydrant hookup, let's say, that does get subtracted out of our, we'll call it the lost water numbers, because it wouldn't show up in production, built, other
Right.
than, you know,
Not on a regular water bill.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's exactly the point. All the pool filling occurs during these summertime things. So we adjust for that. I think it starts showing that these differences between the two peaks may not be as high, because this chart doesn't adjust for that. The other thing that we chatted about that's not considered here seasonally is that all this unauthorized, or I should say authorized unbilled consumption, we just assume kind of happens equally over the year. Some of it does, most of it doesn't, but we're doing a better job tracking water main breaks now. So if there is a break or a construction accident where somebody breaks a pipe, we're trying, you can see that now is tracked. Well, that tends to occur during the summers too. So
Right, but those are a couple of hours at a time, not like weeks or months.
no, but if you look at the balance that we have, which was the second part of the submission, the known leaks and breaks in 2019 were not small numbers.
Yeah, 15 million gallons. Yeah, gallons.
And I think, and you can sort of see over time, there's been a better effort in inventorying these unbilled things. So
I mean, it's not the unbilled consumption that's concerning. It's the actual leakage. If there's leaks, that's where it's concerning, There's reasons why things aren't billed, I'm sure. We can't bill flushing water. We can, backwashing our filters and things like that, obviously. But now that we're going to be spending more money on our PFAS treatment plants to treat this water, it'd be nice to know that we're not losing it back in the ground somewhere, obviously,
no, and I think one of the reasons why there wasn't a big push is that on an annual basis, you're pretty good. You're better than the industry is. But it's this seasonal thing. It's like, why is this happening seasonally? So overall, I'm not saying we're good enough. I'm not saying we should put more effort into it. I'm just saying you tend to be a little bit better than the average system. So that's why it didn't draw that much attention, but we have reasons to look at it now. So,
well, and the main thing is we're looking for additional water sources to cover the peak during the high season. But on the other hand, we're, at least according to this chart, losing half of, or 30% of it, right? And then that's just hard to muscle up then. So would it be,
Our flushing, we've shut it down before if as the demand picked up, if we can't meet demand, we're not going to flush.
Yeah.
So we try to do that in the spring, and so yeah, we might be using as much as we needed during the summer, but it wasn't there in the summer. It wasn't because we were flushing. It was, and I think to Keith's point, it kind of spreads it out through the chart because that's monthly, where the billing is quarterly.
yeah. And in regard to that, would it be possible and would it be helpful for us to do a year where we do, at least during the peak season, do a monthly meter reading on all properties? Even if we don't use it, except for tracking where our water's going?
It is something that crossed my mind, and I think that's where the audit would go is okay, where are our weak links or where are our unknowns? And as a result of that, we come up with a plan to start investigating certain things.
Before I say yes on that, I'd want to check with Amy, who is the guru with that.
And we don't have to use the readings for billing, right?
No, but my fear would be that she would have to run it through the system,
Yeah.
put that data somewhere.
Right.
And does it like autofill type of?
Well, we did do an interim meter reading last year.
Right.
When we increased the rate, because we had to take a reading on, what was it, the end of June, right?
So let's just increase the rate and use that reading.
Well, we're probably planning a rate increase for this next fiscal year.
Right, but we would almost have to do a monthly reading on all meters for at least, you know, the hot summer months. Right.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is
So we would
we're
have to
looking at
increase the rate every month.
we're looking at that 1 month of reading all the meters
Right.
again coming up probably this June 30th, somewhere in that neighborhood, because I think we're expecting another rate increase July 1st. I think that was the plan at least.
Yeah, I mean,
So- So maybe if we look at something in August, at least maybe we'll have 2 months of comparable data.
Well, again, what I'm suggesting is, I think these are all good ideas, and I think an audit and sitting down with the staff and going through some of these things would say, is that the best target? Is that the best place to go spend our resources, whether it's time or money? Is what I'm suggesting. Is I think for a little bit of effort up front, we sort of target where we think we need to chase. And then maybe it is a monthly meter check against the production meters, or maybe it's something else. That's what I'm promoting or suggesting might be a good first step before we just jump into something we think might give us some, good data.
And something else too is the Turkey Hill booster. Every drop of water in the high pressure network goes through that booster right now. So I'm assuming there's a flow meter on there, a totalizing meter on the Turkey Hill booster. So we could do like a mass balance on isolating the low pressure system from the high pressure system when we read those water bill, the house meters, and do the comparison. So we can kind of probably look and say, are we losing more water in the high zone or in the low zone, and kind of focus our efforts. If we're higher than third, we almost cut our distribution system in half, that we need to search for where that water could be going.
But we have consumers connected to the system prior to the tanks, right? On the tanks. We're not getting, it's not like we fill from the wells, the tanks only, right?
Right.
It would work though. I mean, and that's exactly the point, Don.
That's the audit.
That's the audit. So you can start ruling out areas just by using data you already have. And then
right. Do we know if that booster station has a meter that does totalizing? It must, right?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it has a meter. And even if it's not read regularly, we can easily just read it for one of your quarterly periods where you go up and read meters. So we know, we can do
right.
It. Yeah, we can do
right.
it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we want to start reading that one monthly or something. And then Belmont, that's another one up there too. See if there's any leaks up there. I don't know.
Yeah, that has a meter as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Keith, I believe now that these graphs also include the water we've been getting from Pennachuck, the makeup water.
They do, certainly in the most recent years. I'd have to go back and double check on some of the historical stuff.
Right.
Yeah. But they do in the most recent years.
Yeah. All right. Good. All right. What else were we? So, do you want to keep going on this? As I think the next thing we wanted to get into is looking at different kind of rates that we could think about implementing.
Yeah, and again, I have a couple thoughts and a suggestion on that one too. And I know there's interest in this. I think it's smart to look at this. It was looked at 10 years ago, plus or minus. Nothing, it didn't gain traction or wheels at the time, but it is a great way to shave peaks and help, with reducing your high demands. I mean, we all know Merrimack has that significant summertime demand, which is challenging. I went back, we've been involved with a couple of them in the state. I think there is, I double checked, there's 12 systems in New Hampshire that has conservation rates in effect. It's about 8% of the systems. Exeter and Portsmouth are two good models that I've seen. We've worked with Raymond. Raymond's another one. They basically increase the consumption rate after a certain point, and usually around 250 gallons a day, where you would double or add a premium to the rate, so that people who are using more than what considered as typical house would pay more. They pay the same rate for the first 250 gallons every day, but then they would pay a higher rate for those that exceed. My suggestion would be, I know there's a need to do an updated rate model soon, and I think this would be something you'd want to incorporate into that rate model update. And I think, over the next couple of months, I think we were starting to talk about putting a, rate update together for that.
Shouldn't this be tied to like the number of bedrooms in a house?
Well,
It's tied to, the easiest thing is tied to the consumption, otherwise, you gotta
No,
come
what
up
I'm saying, the 2-bedroom house has a lower normal household consumption than a 4-bedroom house.
It's one of the disadvantages of a conservation rate structure, though.
Right.
You're doing something to promote conservation, but you're penalizing somebody who might have a 5-bedroom house. They're still a residential unit,
Right.
6 kids. They're not irrigating, but they may use more than the average bear. That's a disadvantage of this system, but it is it's a disadvantage the systems accept.
but they're still using a lot of water for a service connection, I guess,
And the argument is, we designed our system for a typical household in Merrimack, and some are bigger, some irrigate, and that's just how we're going to do it if we choose to.
So I guess I'd like to know, does our billing software have the capability of that?
Because
If we got to spend all kinds of money getting into a different
That should be a to-do.
I
billing
believe it
software.
does. I think I've had this conversation with Amy before. I believe it does, but I will verify that.
Could you block out customers and have that limit set so that when we receive our usage information and it goes into the program, does it look at, can it look at what that, if we exceed that amount? And it would have to be different for like commercial and industrial users, because you'd have to have your single family residential set at a certain cap, and then you'd have to almost go, I don't know how you would do the commercial establishments.
I can tell you Exeter and Portsmouth and Raymond do not differentiate.
They're only doing on the residential customers?
No, they don't differentiate. So a restaurant is paying the same, tiered. They get 250 gallons at one rate, and then it goes up.
Really?
Yeah.
I would think that most of the commercial establishments would probably exceed that cap pretty consistently, wouldn't they?
Yep. Yeah, a restaurant would.
Yeah. Or even like, a large retail establishment somewhere, and large businesses with a lot of employees and things like that. So they would probably be paying the higher rate consistently year round, essentially, right?
Yep. And the only other thing I've seen, and then again, and I think these systems do the simplistic model, and that is over 250, it goes up 250 gallons a day, or over a certain tier, because for everybody, because it's just simple. I have seen where you can do it by meter size. So you have a baseline flow for a particular meter size, and then which accommodates your point, Don. A restaurant maybe who has a 2-inch meter will have a higher threshold before they go to the second tier.
Right.
What's the premium usually, Keith? Is it like 10% or something, or?
Portsmouth's 20, Exeter might have been 25. They're usually around 20-25% that I've seen, or at least the few that I've looked at.
And so that's on the amount over whatever threshold you set, or is it go back to the whole amount that they've used?
Just the excess.
Okay.
Yeah.
There
I mean,
is, if you're interested, Dawn, you probably follow this, but the New Hampshire Waterworks Association meeting is coming up. Actually, the first day is in a couple of days. They're doing them online. There's 2 good sessions on water balance, things we're talking about, and you know, and on audits. I don't think it deals with rates, but those I did mean to mention that earlier if somebody was interested.
Okay. I mean, I think this is something, if we're thinking of doing it, I don't know if we could pull it together by the July 1st. I think we're all planning on another rate increase on July 1st anyway, just part of the whole PFAS construction and whatnot. That was, I think we're supposed to have, we missed one this year, but we kind of jumped the rate last year a little bit higher. So maybe it wasn't so critical to have to increase the rate again this year. And I think some of our projects are a little deferred further out, so it wasn't critical for us to increase the rate this past July with COVID. So all these reasons, I think we just decided not to. But I think we're definitely planning on doing one. We have to do one coming up July 1st. So this, if we're gonna do the step block rate change, that would probably be the time to do it as well. So you don't keep changing rates more often than we really need to, because I think that's something that we don't want to do a lot of rate changing, obviously. So if we can wrap this into, there's any way that we can get this on board by July 1st to also include it in our normal rate adjustment to begin with. Do you think maybe that would be better doing it together like that, or
I
doing
think
it separate?
I think you want to do it together, and the reason I'd say that is because if you're going to make rate adjustments, you're going to want to know if we're going to make rate design changes, how it impacts user classes, so that the scenarios that you're running are going to show both, because they're tied. You can't separate them. I mean, if you're going to make a rate design change and a rate increase, it's going to impact people differently.
Well, the question is, do we do it only in July, or do we do it before the outdoor watering season? I mean, we omitted this year's increase already, right? I mean, right now we're in a surplus, but we have 2 more projects. Actually, 4 and 5 is basically complete, but we have 2 more projects that are going to be burdening us, and
Paying bonds on those.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would almost like to see that we pull that in to like March, April, but then really, put that tiered rate in place right now. Because again, just for everybody to remember, for the public really, while we're talking about this, is we're fine all year long except for the 3-4 summer months, the high peak summer months.
And that's all irrigation.
And that's all irrigation. It's not even pools. It's really irrigation.
So if
Outdoor irrigation,
we're spending
lawn
money,
irrigation.
We're spending money finding more sources. That burden is being shared equally among everyone, whereas we really only need to spend the money finding all those new sources to provide irrigation.
For lawns, for the most part.
For lawns. So it's like, it's not really a fair, it's not being burdened on the irrigation user. It's being burdened on everybody.
And everybody.
So that's the concept behind this block rate.
And for the record, I think both you and I, and probably more than you and I, are irrigation customers.
Right. So my bill would go up, but I feel like it's fair that I should be paying for extra water that I'm using, that my other neighbors who don't irrigate shouldn't have that burden to pay for my irrigation water.
That's right.
So anyways.
So I don't see why we couldn't do something before July. And we just set it with the last, that upcoming rate, and, if we needed something now, or we can.
April 1st, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we would need to do a full town meter reading in order to do this. We could just start sending out those bills.
No, we would.
We have to do it.
We would.
Well, we thought that the one read be easier because you get that cutoff for everybody at that one time. But we tiered them in the past.
What I would like to not do this time is to send out the partial bills, and rather, put it on the normal
yeah.
bill run, because that's what confused everybody.
So you
We
would
can
have
still
a-
get the reading, but tack on that differential onto the normal
on a
bill.
different, so you'd have like different billing periods
Yeah.
for,
So we would basically have, like, we would give some customers a credit for 2 months until the third bill cycle is going through.
What if that would
But who cares?
be a real high bill?
It can't be a real high one because it's not like we're increasing by 100%, right? So plus it's,
Would that give? So it's potentially, okay. No, I'm
we can start,
talking through my mind as well.
certainly a cash flow, temporary cash flow dip, but 2 months in, 2 months after we're going to have it recovered, and with the surplus we have in place, right? And we're not talking about millions of dollars either.
yeah.
So, but those partial bills is what got everybody confused, because people got a 1 month partial bill, right, in the first billing cycle, while they're actually on the third billing cycle in the quarter, right? And then they get a bill for the same time frame, but 2 months later in the following year, and all of a sudden they're paying 3 times the amount, and they're comparing those two bills, and they're like,
Why is it
what's going
different?
on,
Yeah.
right?
But I think that also supports the idea of starting with a tiered rate structure early, because if you do that in the middle of peak
Right.
demand, you're going to have an increase plus a tiered increase, and that could really whack somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd be good to have a little bit of history there.
Yeah.
But I
And
guess
time to educate, because this will be a significant change too.
Yeah.
I think we'd have to do some sort of a mailing, letting them know there's a rate increase and
And the reasoning behind it, right?
yeah, as well as the tiered rate system as well, if that's something we choose to go with.
Would that be too early to get in place by March or something? I mean, with the other 15 things we have going on.
Well, I think from our perspective, it's not too early to run the numbers and give the recommendations on the structure. It's going to be the will of just making it happen. And it's because it's not a popular thing from the experience and the discussions I've had at other systems. But
Right.
it's the right thing to do, but it's a tough thing to do. And so it depends how adamant we are about doing it. So like to your point, you're both saying it, we're doing this to save money.
There are people out there that are talking about drilling their own irrigation well just to be able to irrigate the lawn.
Right.
And that's certainly not going to be any cheaper than paying, I don't know, not even a couple $100 probably more a year, right? So for the public rate. So
No, but there was one,
makes sense.
there was one condominium association that's in
Right.
our wellhead protection area for wells 4 and 5 that wanted to do their own irrigation well.
right.
So not only would we be losing that revenue, but they would still be using our water
Right.
indirectly. So that's kind of hurting us both ways, really. They're still drawing from our aquifer,
Right.
and we're not able to make any profit on selling them the water. And they're probably going to pump more from the aquifer
Cover the cost.
than they would
Nothing.
that for our cost to be
Right,
covered.
Right.
Keith,
know,
have
so
you got any experience with Exeter or Portsmouth with regards to how effective this tier structure is at reducing demand?
Well, I was going to suggest that, part of the scope and the efforts would be, we would want to talk to them more specifically about, do you see a significant reduction when you actually implement something like this? Brian Getz, who's the water resources manager in Portsmouth, is very educated on this, and I think he'd love to share his thoughts and experience on that. So I think it's a good idea to include that before we make any final decisions.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And actually, Keith, do they have odd even as well with this rate? Or was that their conservation plan was the rate?
Well, I think they ended up with some conservation measures, even if they were voluntary. But no, this was one of their conservation efforts, was the tiered rate, and I can't remember when they implemented it, but it's been in for a bit. And Exeter's isn't that old either, so they may have some recollection of what it was like and what they gained out of it.
So you're not currently under contract to do any of this for us right now under any ESRs?
Nope. No, we were
Something we want to ask?
Yeah, we need a quote.
Yeah,
I think you wanted us to do a rate update anyway, so we'll just
yeah,
include, I think what we'll do is we'll include the audit and the tiered rate design and the rate adjustments in one ESR.
I guess so. It's not like we have our own engineering department to handle it. Which is another matter, but
You
All
got a
right.
pretty big infrastructure, so it's a lot going on. But okay, we'll do that.
okay. So is that everything you wanted to cover in this packet that you sent to us, I believe?
That was all. And the only, I don't know if you want to touch on the XDD.
Should we,
Yeah.
that should be a to-do, the
Check the
verifying the software.
Verify.
Right, we're verifying that our billing software is able to handle
Yeah.
some kind of advanced billing.
Yeah, so if you want to do a to-do list, Amanda, for Ron to verify that our billing software has the capability of doing
Tiered rate.
tiered rates. Okay. Actually, before you're, I don't think we got a copy of the task in our packet for some reason. I don't know why. It's on the agenda, but it wasn't in the packet. But I don't know if there was anything before Underwood leaves, if there was anything on Underwood's plate to follow up on from the last. Do you have that in front of you, Amanda, by chance, the spreadsheet of the tasks?
I can pull it up.
And maybe just look see if there's anything under Underwood on there. I thought there were a few things that were just left over that we couldn't answer right away, but I just wanted to make sure there weren't anything else on there. Because I know Underwood's wrapping up, so if we can.
All right, it's just loading. Hold on one second.
Okay. While you're doing that, do you have that?
I do. Let's see. Underwood is to investigate other contracts to aid MVD with stronger contract language. That's an ongoing for future contracts. And Underwood will follow up with a proposal for a rate evaluation for the November 2020 meeting.
All right, well, there you go.
And that's it for Underwood.
Okay. All right, Keith, what about the XDD labs? What have you found out on that?
Well, just quickly, it's they are involved with Niles Corporation. Nothing actively or aggressive, but there is some constant activity. We did share some results that XDD did on a study with a group out of Massachusetts, I think, at a larger scale that was sort of independent from Niles, and there was some useful and interesting data there. XDD is entering into a contract on Cape Cod for, I think, their point of use zeolite units. That I think is also an independent study, so there will be some interesting data coming out of that. The main point that XDD made to me, keeps making to me when I talk to him, and this is not new, I think he shared that with Mike in previous conversations we've had, because we've been in touch with him for years, several years actually, is that the zeolite has promise, but it's his words, it's not ready for prime time yet. It's not at NSF 61 certified yet. There's not enough study yet. So that's kind of where they're at. And I know, Dawn, at some point you had said maybe there's worth doing some of that independent or doing some study with them on this. And so I think that, that's kind of where we're at. Is that something we feel we should advance, pursue, or do as a next step?
Yeah, I was just curious if they would entertain a proposal to do a lab study on rapid small scale column tests for us and I'm not sure which water we want to look at, but I just think it would be good to know, I mean, I don't know what the cost is on something like that. That's why I was wondering if,
What I asked him is, would you be willing to put a proposal together? He said yes, but I didn't ask him to do it yet until you guys said that's something
Right.
you want him to do. And I did offer that we do have space to have it. What we sort of framed out is that he and they could help with the protocols and the design, and bring with them what they know about the ZLA, even help set up the pilot at Wells 4 and 5 in the space there, and then even if the district sort of ran it to help keep things down. So we got that far, but that's kind of where we
okay. All right, that's good. I'd like to keep this going and just to see, especially if we can get columns set up at Wells 4 and 5 and do it on our own would be good. I'm sure we could save some money on that. And we probably were going to make.
He said he'd even build it for you, and then you guys just have to run it.
Right. There's probably other media and other water that we might want to run down there at some point in the future. So I guess if you follow up on that with him, and I think it'd be good if we got a proposal to know what we're looking at for costs. I know it's probably going to be some expense up front for the apparatus of the columns that we're going to need to, I guess, purchase, or I don't know if we rent it from them or what the deal was, and then we'd keep those columns, and we could just fill them with whatever different media we wanted to in the future that we wanted to test.
I think that would be ideal. I mean, they're not much more than usually some PVC type materials, so it's not it's
Okay.
labor, I think, that's going to cost you, and then you might as well keep them.
Yeah. And if maybe we can have some of the staff work on the labor to set it up. I don't know if we have anybody that would be.
Might be able to just show us what they're supposed to look like. We
Right.
probably could build them ourselves.
Like over the winter, if there's some work that we have maybe some extra time. I don't really know if we have any extra time in the winter at all.
What I'll
But
do is
I think
I'll ask
there
him
is-
for a
yeah, there
two-part
is some-
proposal. Then I'll ask him to design the pilot, and then give us an added price if he had to build it, and then you guys could choose whether or not you want to take advantage of it or something like that.
okay. All right. Anybody have any other thoughts or?
As far as your proposal for the for the rate study and the tiered rates, we receive that proposal in the next meeting and then sign off on it. We're already in November. And it's gonna be really, really quick with the,
Budget and all that coming up, right?
well, and we have to have
2 meetings.
2 meetings to, what's it called, to read them.
Yep. So what I was actually thinking would May be too late to start if we shot for May for the rate increase?
I was
Did
wondering too. Do it in the.
March, April, the two readings. And then,
Well, like I said before, I'm not really sure why we need a rate study right this second. We know which way the trend is going. We have the rate study from last year. No, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. So we have
18,
numbers.
actually.
We have numbers that are not completely outdated.
they're not that far off either.
We have a good guess with the cost overruns for 4.5 that we're probably a little bit low in that rate study. Do we really need to do a rate study right this second and delay the process? Or do we want to go into 2021 with a rate,
So you think
structure that makes sense to support what people are asking for, which is irrigation?
so more so concentrated on the tiered rate structure, how that would work, and maybe to come up with a rate.
I think an update to the rate study right now is a waste of money and time. We have a pretty precise compass in place as it is. It's 2 years old, granted, and we know what changed since then, so we can scale it a little bit one way or another.
So when July rolls around, what are we going to use for a backup to know what rate increase we're going to want to recommend?
I mean, when April rolls around. if we want to do it in April.
I'm planning on a rate increase in July 1st, like we always were planning, like we missed the last one. So I don't want to miss another one.
No, we said we're going to do it in April, not in July. So we have the tiered rate increase in place.
All right, I
before
thought
the-
you were just talking about the block rate increase.
No, because we wanted to do those together. We said we wanted to do them. That's what I
Okay.
heard.
All right,
That's what we're
okay, all right.
talking about as well. What,
Well, and to Wolf's point, I mean, if you approach it that way, I think we had recommended a 3-step increase. So the first step was based on a rate model, and the second and third step was based on the assumptions we made then.
Right.
You could do what Wolf's suggesting, just implement the second recommendation, and then when you do the final recommendation, decide then if you need to do a
Yeah.
financial model to make sure that that last step is right.
Yeah.
So that study was a 13% increase in the first 2 years. We ended up doing a 19% that first year, no increase the second year. So this would be going into the third year. Where do you pick a number from there?
Well, as I recall, I thought we had made a 3-step increase. So you chose, it was 13, 13 and something. It was 13, 13 and 40.
40 or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if you decided to go Wolf's route, you just do.
As long as they add up to the,
You basically get yourself to the 26 roughly, and then do the final correction with a model a year or two out when you have all
right.
the final numbers in. I mean, that's not unreasonable.
so the fact that we went from the 13 to the 19, instead of doing a 13%, we went to the 19%. Was that just like front loading the ultimate remaining increases?
No, we knew we had some cost overruns at the time
Right.
in the second vessel. So that was the reason for the 19. So you could argue we could do the 13 now because we still have this year we have.
we're looking at a 6, I think, for this year. When 19, I want to say it was a 6% increase. We just broke it up differently. We needed it more so that first year,
Right.
that first increase, we went with a 19 and we figured, I think everyone said it was a 6.
So we should have been up to 26% with the increase that we didn't have this year. So you're saying another 7% would get us to the 26 that we should be at?
Right.
Right. I'm just not sure if that we need to,
To go through, yeah, I know.
I don't think, and I don't think we need to go over those 13 and the 6 that we had planned originally because we already have a surplus right now. Just ballparking it, right? Thumb in the wind. We're
I don't
good
think
for
I've seen
moment
the
right
end of
now.
year 2020 yet.
We haven't. Not the final
I don't
ones.
even have that. I don't even know how we did last year.
You didn't get the audit?
Well, we have the preliminary numbers from
We
last
didn't
month.
do the financial in August. I don't know why. And then
Here we
I
go.
don't, we missed the financial report in a meeting this summer. Absolutely. I have no idea why.
The final year end report we missed, but we did get the August. Right here it is. July through August. And then
Yeah,
we had
well, that didn't include last year. Right? We should have got July through June of 20. And I didn't remember seeing that. Right? What did you just say you had there?
this is July through August.
Right, so we should have went July of 19 through August of 20.
Yeah,
I mean, July of 19 through June of 20.
Yeah.
I mean, it usually comes out when we do the budget anyways, but I still can't tell you how much surplus we had in
That would have
fiscal year 20.
I will,
I can't.
I will make sure it
You
goes
didn't
out.
tell me.
If you didn't get it, the pressure went out, so I thought those numbers.
we had 500,000 surplus, didn't we?
Michelle still had to shift around some receivables and us. There was stuff floating all over the place that we didn't.
There was some, but the ballpark was 500.
Yeah.
There was some minor reconciliations happening, but they weren't having a big impact. But you're right, we didn't see the year-end report, I'm pretty sure. The audit report we didn't see.
So do we have a consensus not to bother with doing a rate study then? I don't know if I'm in favor of that or not, but
How much time does it take you guys to do that?
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing, Keith, is you guys got a lot of stuff going on, and I don't want you to do some work that's going to delay other work that you're doing.
Well,
So-
it's different. It's different people.
Yeah.
The people that plug on this rates aren't involved with the design work. So
All right.
it's different people. I do it. Yeah. I mean, I'm neutral on it. You know, normally what we recommend is you update a rate model every 2 years as an update, and then you do a comprehensive one every 5. And that's kind of our recommendation. It's been 2 years, but you know, you do have a third step coming. We know this is a 70% plus or minus rate impact. We just know it. And so, and you have a basis for making a rate adjustment next year, whether it's 7 or 8 or 10. You know, you could decide, I want to soften the rates. You don't need a rate model to do that. We're going to adjust it in the final year.
Yeah, I can understand that.
You know, it's
And it may not be 70% because irrigation customers are going to take some of the grunt, and that's going to reduce the base rate for the rest, you know, for base consumption. So
you'll just have to be prepared, you know, because there, you know, it's nice to be able to point to something and say, this is the recommendation, it's been vetted and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I think either would work. It just depends on how you guys choose to bite this apple.
So if we were to expedite, you know, if we would approve this quote, even if we come here for a special session in between, so we don't lose a whole month.
A block rate thing?
No,
Study?
no, that quote for a rate study.
A rate study?
Right. The problem is if we're now already a month late, by the time we get the quote from them, it's going to be another month, right? And then how much time do you think you're going to need to actually get that study done, Keith?
The rate part or the tiered?
Both.
I say 2 months for planning.
Yeah, that's right about.
So now in January, then December, January, if we're lucky, then we have to have 2 readings.
Yeah.
Could work for April. Can we get the quote out quick and we approve it?
Yeah, I mean, I could get you something within 2 weeks for sure.
So we don't waste that first month until November. That might help.
All right.
How do we do that? Do we need a meeting for that then, or?
I mean, we can, yeah, we can throw a meeting together, just a quickie for the one topic to go over.
Yeah. And by the time we have a schedule, we have more than one topic anyway.
Well, the chances are we're going to probably have other topics too. And, you know, it'd be good to have maybe an interim meeting so we're not doing like 5.5 hours every month like we have been.
Well, I'll let you guys decide. We'll get you something by Thursday next week. So that's the 29th. You'll have something from us.
Okay. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, that sounds good. Good. Any other final thoughts, anybody? For Underwood? All right. Thanks, Keith.
All right,
Thanks for hanging in
guys.
there.
I'll listen in for a bit.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yep. Good night.
Amy,
Hey.
thanks for patiently waiting. We were ahead of schedule, but we fell behind somehow again.
That's okay. I'm used to it. You're not the only commission I serve, so and you're not the only commission that goes long. So I'm gonna make this quick. I think as quick as I can, and I would like to share my screen. Is that possible? Can I go ahead and do that?
It's possible.
It's possible?
I'm going to
Right click on him.
You
Or
have
the
to
3
yeah.
dots. Him up in his picture.
Oh, up there?
Yeah. Right, the 3 buttons on the right. Whatever it says.
Spotlight, make host,
Make host, yeah.
Make host?
Probably.
resume, stop video.
Make host.
Make up right there. Okay.
Okay, good. There we go. There we go. Can you see my screen?
It's just black. All
Yep.
right, there you go.
Okay, good. All right. So the first thing on our agenda was to I wanted to give you all a little bit of a background. Dawn and Jill and the state got together with me and Dan a little over a week ago to go and visit the site that we're
No,
talking about,
they don't have it.
Natticook Brook. And so one of the things that we talked about, one is the well sites, that we've looked at. The state was, very supportive of the attempt of ours to go ahead and move towards developing better quality water, in the locations that we have identified. And they didn't really have a strong opinion about whether or not 1D or 1B would be the location. But as we've been moving in the conversation internally and externally a little bit, that we're leaning towards 1B. It does save the access road construction. It gets us significantly out of the lower area and further away from the wetlands. So the one major issue, and I don't want to call it major, but there is an issue here that was discussed with the state, and that is they are going to want some demonstration that we're not adversely impairing the wetlands. And of course, this is kind of a after the horse is out of the barn conversation, because the water table out there is 15 feet below the wetlands. And that I know because that we've been monitoring the wells that you see in yellow, if you can see on my screen here. These are the wells that we're currently monitoring. The ones here in yellow, C6, 1B, and so forth. Let me get that in smaller. So I thought that it would be in our best interest, and Don, I didn't even discuss this with you, but I felt like this is something we're going to need to do. So I went ahead and had someone on Columbus Day go out before the rain event came to take photos starting from Natticook Lake, kind of do a photo journal, working ourselves around to the northeast and going through Greens Pond, which we see here with the Greens Pond up here is the intake, so no water coming out of Greens Pond, and then no water in the creek. This is Natticook Brook, and there's no water in Natticook Brook. And so I wanted to demonstrate that there's, we have an ability and knowledge that there is no water in this creek at significant periods of time. And I can now take that date with those photos and backtrack it to the water level data that we have in the 6 or 7 monitoring wells that are established along Natticook Brook. And the purpose of that really is to say, okay, the horse is out of the barn. Well 2 has been operating. Water table has been diminished significantly to the point that during these periods of time, the water table is 15 feet. If we bring the water table down to 20 feet or 25 feet, it's not going to have any more impact on the wetlands. It's the water level's already down low. So that's the point of this exercise, is that I believe that we're going to need this as part of our discussion as we go forward with permitting the next well. And the other issue, and I don't want to take too much on that because the state was not, they just brought the concept up that it's going to be something we're going to have to work through. Now, if we take well 3 offline, we're already having an impact, of course, with the pumping of well 3. If we take well 3 offline, there's going to be more water coming into Greens Pond. Water levels are probably going to go up. The people around Greens Pond are going to probably be happier for the long term. And there's going to be more recharge coming down into the Natticook Brook region, flowing northeast, and therefore we will have more access. We'll be gaining some of the groundwater recharges being consumed by well 3. Now we'll be able to take it from our, whatever we call this, well 9, and with better quality. So the concept, the mass balance concept, the quality concept, the location of the sites, they all, the state was very supportive of. And I think overall it was an incredibly positive and productive meeting. Don, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, but I felt very, very good about the discussion. But I wanted to get ahead of the curve with this kind of photo journal before we started getting into these rains, especially now that we're in a drought. But I don't know, Don, if you had anything else you wanted to add in that meeting.
No, I agree. I think we, put everything on the table. They did definitely tell us that if there's an impact from pumping our well on the wetlands, that they may have to require us to reduce the pumping rate in the summer, which is kind of going against all the reasons we need the new well.
Right.
But what you bring up a really interesting point is if the water table, is it always below the wetlands?
Well, that's something that we're going to take a look at. No, because there's water that flows through the creek. At times there is flow that goes through that creek, but
Yeah, there is. But if that flow is filling the wetlands, that I would say it's more of a surface water feature.
well, clearly, yeah, no, and that's the point that we're trying to make, is that if the water table is 15 feet below the wetlands, and for the majority of the year, then we will, be in a really good position to demonstrate that that we're not going to have an issue. And so, this is going to be something that evolves. And I think what happens now is that we're going to change, in my view, the direction, not the direction of what we're doing, but I want to, let me just bring this over. In the discussion that we had with, last time about our proposal, which was this is the proposal that was approved last commission meeting. And as I mentioned before, this is out of line with what we normally do by putting in the larger production well. I don't disagree that we shouldn't continue on with the larger production well to start, but right now I'm thinking that task 4 will be something we do right away. And Steve Roy and Andrew were open to the concept of us submitting a preliminary, pumping test plan.
Cool.
But I want to go a little bit further than that and submit the preliminary application to DES so that they have all of the information up front. I'm not going to hold us back in scheduling the installation of the well, but get that all up front to see if they end up coming up with anything harder in our world than we think is being presented now. I don't think there will be, and I think we can address this wetland issue. I really do. And we knew that was going to be part of it. That's always a part of it. But
Jamie, when were you intending on putting in the piezometers or monitoring wells in or around the wetlands?
So the original plan was this, everything I showed you here was a preliminary process that we would install them right away, install the production well, do a preliminary pumping test, and then submit the preliminary hydrogeologic report. All we were doing is changing a test well and putting in a production well. But right now, given that we want to have that conversation with the state a little bit in greater depth, particularly since there was an indication that someone in the past history, Steve, if you recall, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, brought up the whole Natticook wetland issue when well 2 was pumping. That tells me that I should probably rearrange this work order and go, before I do any installation of shallow piezometers, prepare the pumping test plan, and submit the preliminary application.
Yeah,
makes sense.
And one of the reasons, this is completely contrary to, anything that we've done in the last 30 years, but it's okay. And it's not, I'm not suggesting it's bad. I think it's okay because we have a fair and a significant amount of confidence in this site for production. If I felt less comfortable with the potential for producing water in this aquifer at that location, I would feel very differently. But I feel very, this is I think we're okay. So I just want to let you know that that's what we're moving towards. I don't think I need, maybe I do, approval from the commission, just to say that we're going to move task 4 up front before we do task 1.
I think the state knows that we're in a bind.
They do.
So, and they know that we're going into a known area, replacing a well that we know. So kudos to them for recognizing that and allowing us to charge ahead here, a little bit out of the ordinary. So let's get it done.
And I had a number of conversations afterwards, after that meeting, to kind of, continue to bolster that position, Wolf. And I think you're right. You're right, and I think it's it's the right thing to do. So let's do that. If you're okay with it, that's the way I'm going to move forward. I'm not going to slow down the contractors. I'm going to keep the because we got to get them on our schedule. We have. But they're out there, so I'm not sure we would even be able to start drilling until Thanksgiving or after, based on what their booked workload is right now. So I've already had 2 conversations with our contractor and begging him to be on our side here, which he will be. That's kind of it for that portion of the Natticook Brook Groundwater Development Project. But I wanted to also show you what we've kind of taken it upon ourselves to go and look at the data at Natticook Brook with the water levels and taking that photojournal, because there's nothing better than a photojournal to present to the state than just it's better than a conversation. All right, with that said, then I wanted to say that MVD 4R, that's been approved. So, things are all set on that. That got fast-tracked through the state, and about 2 weeks ago, actually, after we had our last commission meeting, I think it was the week after that, we got the approval. So those guys, I know Keith is aware of that, and I don't think there's any other issues associated with that. So I don't need to share any more. I think the last thing is the salt mitigation next steps, and Don wrote a note to me last week, which I think everybody was on. I concurred that, it'd be, I would have been happier probably if we were a little bit further along, but at the same time, I think what I'd like to do is get your take on what I think is the next step. I've spoken to Brandon Kernan, I've spoken to Steve Roy, I've spoken to Pierce Rigrod. All of them understand, and all of them are willing to participate in a dialogue with landowners. I've reached out to Steve Landry, who I'm not familiar with, who is involved in the watershed. He is the supervisor for the Watershed Assistance Program, which I'm just not that familiar with. But he also is engaged, and so was Pierce, in the legislation that was provided for the Snow Pro, which means that those landowners have legal protection to reduce their salt load within wherever they're salting. So whoever we choose to connect with next, which I think we need to do, we're going to present to them not only the salt issues, but the legal ramifications in the new legislation. And now I wanted to have the state present on a Zoom to explain and expound upon that. And I think what would be helpful, I'm thinking that we would have a meeting with the selected landowners sometime in the middle of November, maybe November 16th. We don't have to make that decision now, but that Monday, and get in that interim, send a letter out that either I can draft or you can draft that will request to the landowners in the watershed or in the recharge areas of the 4 production wells that they come to a meeting to discuss what we need to do in terms of reduction. Now, I would include the salt graphs, like, you've already sent 2 letters out to these landowners, but this would be additional a request from the commissioners, specifically from the commissioners, that ask for an attendance or someone from their organization to attend a virtual meeting that we could review a PowerPoint presentation with the state present. And I guess the question is that something you would like to do at this point?
I think that's something that I'd be very interested in having done.
Okay.
And I don't know what number of participants are we talking about here? Like 10?
Well, I was thinking that we would go after it's a good question because it's the way I was trying to think about it. Do we go after the top 20 property owners that we think are current contributors to the salt problem and then find out that 15 of them say yes and 10 show up? I mean, that's kind of the way I think we should approach it.
Yeah.
As opposed to just opening it up to every single, now we could open it up to everybody, but we really, really are being impacted by probably 10 top ones.
If I'm trying to remember your salt presentation, wasn't like residential a very small percentage of the salt problem?
Right.
And like the majority of the salt contributors is the DOT, the town, and some of the large commercial parking lots. And when I say commercial, that also includes multi-unit residential. So,
Correct.
So I think if we're going to have like a webinar or a Zoom meeting, I don't think it makes sense to have more than 10, 15 participants at the most. So you wouldn't really want to have all the residential people involved in that meeting. I kind of think we need a priority. You probably have 30 commercial properties that we could invite, but we probably got to select the ones that we think are more contributory on the salt, right?
Right, I agree, and I think I would take the top 20 and see how it ends up, because I think you'll end up with half of those people.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
If we're lucky, actually.
Yeah, and if we start seeing a lot of no's, we can expand the invite at the if we have some time.
Right.
And I would like to invite. I know the state rejected coming to the last presentation. Clearly, I want Kyle to come to Kyle Fox, or the Public Works Director for Town of Merrimack, if we could. But I would like to extend this again to the DOT. And with the state being a part of this, I think that they may be more apt to respond.
Okay. I mean, I was even wondering about, and Ron and I talked about this last week about, does it make sense for maybe just MVD staff? I don't know if we want to divide up the duties and stuff like that, but to call, just maybe 5 or 10 of these, most likely would be property managers that are responsible for applying the salt on these commercial projects. And just kind of give them a heads up, just a friendly conversation about, hey, I don't know if you're aware, we sent a letter to you a month ago. We also sent a letter a year ago. We've had some impacts on our wells with salt. We're trying to collect a lot of the larger parking lot owners, representatives of those owners like yourself to come and learn about different methods that are out there that we have, that salt application certification that has, liability waivers and things like that. Just to kind of have a personal approach. And I wouldn't want to do it to 30. I don't even think we need to do it to 20, but I'm even wondering if we just do it to, 5 or 10 of the large parking lots that we think, we know where the hot spots are. There's that quadrant,
right?
Industrial Drive and Continental, that, what is it? The southeast quadrant over there. And there's really only a couple of really big users in that region, and then going up Continental, we have a couple of large properties over there. And then there's a few large properties over at Wells 4 and 5. Maybe just making a verbal contact with the right people. Because if we really can get at least 5 or 10 of them to sit around and watch this webinar and see and listen, I think we have a good opportunity on making a pretty good impact on that.
No, I agree with that. I think it's going to have to be a twofold approach, because I think most of the salt managers and salt application managers are fully aware of the SnowPro programs and it is about being enforced by their client to accommodate. So I think you're right, Don. I think we should do that, but I also feel very strongly that we need to go to to whoever employs them, because we
Yeah.
need their support. Ultimately, we need to get them on board. And so, and understand that it's a civic responsibility to help us to do what is in the best interest of the citizens of this community in terms of their environment, water supply, et cetera. So I want to appeal to both, and
Right.
maybe I can work with Ron, because he may be aware of the names of the snow managers. And I
Right.
don't know, Ron, if you do know those, but I mean, is that something that you think you could help?
Absolutely. You know, we have record, we talk to property managers all the time, and I was just going to say that if there's a particular board to a property, let's say like around 4 and 5, that maybe needs to be invited as well, they're the decision makers.
HOA board or something,
Yeah.
or yeah, condo association board or something.
That might be somebody
That's a great idea.
that can be invited as well.
I mean, it almost seems like you can just look at the wellhead protection area maps a little bit up close and just kind of look at where the big parking lots are and just.
Well, I can send you them. We'll send you guys easily this week. I'll send you the high priority, the ones that we want to pursue. But I also I'm struggling too. If I had 30 people say I want to participate, I'm not sure I want to say no, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we need everybody to be rowing the boat in the same direction. So, I know the limitations of Zoom and virtual meetings, but even if we got the word out,
Sure.
and they were attending, and we could have a follow-up one-on-one, I mean, that could also be an alternative. So let me do this. Let me, if you don't mind, I will try to get out to you by the end of the week, or Monday at the latest, a map with the parcels that we would recommend that we send out an invite to. Let you guys take a viewing, and if it's okay, I'll send it to the board as a whole on an email, and then allow input for that, and then we'll get that letter out next week.
Get what letter out?
Get a letter of invite
With a date?
with a date. Yeah, with maybe 1 or 2 dates, right? We might have to do this twice.
Yeah. Do you have any dates from the state or anything?
No, I haven't, but I think, I was looking at it, up until the election is going to be tough. I was looking at Monday, the 16th, and Tuesday, the 17th of November as possible dates.
Okay. Okay.
Now, that doesn't coincide with your meeting, does it? I don't think so.
No, our meeting is the 20.
Oh, no.
It's the 20th.
It might coincide with your meeting. But the 3rd Monday of November. It's
That would be November.
16th.
Yeah, that's early. It's kind of surprised me. Just I was thinking it would be in the 20th, but so it might be the Tuesday, Wednesday, 17th, 18th.
As long as it's not the 20th, I'm out of commission on the 20th.
Okay. We have a little time to finalize that, but I think that's kind of the dates I'm thinking.
Yeah. I was even wondering if we just want to reach out with a phone call and not even have a date and just tell them we're going to be doing a webinar and we'll let you know what the date is once we figure it out. Unless you can have a date in the next, short amount of time, I guess, but.
Well, I was going to email Brandon and Steve and just throw those 2 dates out to see if they were available.
Yeah.
And if they're not, then we'll have to revisit. But
Would that be the 17th, 18th?
17th, 18th. Yeah, that's what I want to try to get to tonight. But I concur with you, though. I think I think we do want to talk to him verbally. I think that's important. And I think what I'll do, Ron, is give you a call tomorrow if we can to kind of talk about the property managers and the HOAs that you're aware of.
Okay.
You know,
I mean, even if we can reach out to 5 of them and just let them know this is coming, you know, the 5 critical ones. I mean,
yeah,
I can name them off right now, but you know, we know who they are.
Well, and I said this when we were talking, I'd kind of like to have the dates if when I am talking to them, I can throw the date out.
Yeah, and see if it's
and say we're going to follow up with a letter.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
But I definitely like
That makes sense.
And if we start seeing a lot of them saying, "Oh, gee, I won't be able to attend," maybe we change the date to work around.
I don't want to micromanage it. If you guys are going to be doing more of the heavy lifting, I'll certainly let you deal with that. So that sounds
I
like.
just want to make sure I have this. I have the support of the commission to continue to move in that direction and in that kind of date time frame estimate. So
Sure.
all right, good. That's
Any
all
other
I had.
comments? Commissioners, any other questions or comments on that or the SALT study or anything or
No,
everybody
I'm fine with that.
good?
Sounds good. Good. Okay.
Okay.
You didn't have to spend any money tonight.
It doesn't happen often enough.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys.
Before you leave, Jamie, I think it's very, that's something I hadn't thought about is you'd be curious to know if, and I don't know if this happens throughout the season, but if those wetlands are disconnected from the groundwater system, I don't know if that's possible, but.
Oh, yeah, it's typical. It's typical because, when we do the groundwater investigations in most wetlands, there's enough peat and enough fine sediments that cause that water table to be perched. And to be elevated. So most often in most groundwater withdrawal, large groundwater withdrawal permits we do not see a direct impact on the wetlands. But, we also, I don't know, we haven't, because this MVD2 has been online for so long and there's really been no study to determine what is the impact. That's just not I just can't predict it. I mean, there may be 20% of the projects that do have an impact, and that does have an influence. But, it is hard when you're 15 feet below the water table there to, you've got to have a very significant change. And one of the things now that I'm interested in, and what we're going to do as part of this preliminary report submittal, is to take a longer, harder look at the water table and the groundwater monitoring elevations that we have available to us. Now, a lot of those 5, all those when you saw yellow, are only data collected since we installed those test wells, which was just in the last, within the last year. So I don't have historical data, but I do have some historical data on a couple of the monitoring wells that we have in the area.
I was going to say, because some of the monitoring wells that surround well 2, those have been in place for a long time. I don't know, do we read those in the winter?
And well 1, yes. Yep, we have some, yeah.
So it'd be interesting to know if those historic monitoring wells have groundwater elevations that kind of correspond to being well below the wetland elevation level.
Exactly, and that's why I took that photo library to go backwards and back, kind of do more of a forensic backward look.
Right, because I mean, if that's telling us that those wetlands are wet mostly from surface runoff that drains to them, then as opposed to the water table coming up and filling them from the bottom.
Right.
If the water table never comes up and fills them from the bottom, if it's always below the bottom of the wetland, then that's a better case for the aquifer, pumping our aquifer, not affecting the wetland, because it's the water table is never or more frequently below the wetland to begin with. If that can be, that's what I think we should be looking at, right? I mean, if we can make that case.
We're definitely going to be going down the
Yeah.
path. Yeah.
All right.
And just so you know, when we did 7 and 8, we had to go through a large groundwater withdrawal permit as well, and we had to demonstrate that 7 and 8 did not adversely impact the wetlands. So, we're right there in the wetlands, so we were able to do that.
Yeah. Sounds interesting. Good.
That'll be a fun project for sure.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Well, I
Great.
think that's it for me, and I appreciate your patience too. Have a good evening.
Absolutely. Thanks
Thanks,
for tuning in.
You made up good time.
See ya. I'm still at the office, so I got a 30-minute drive to get home.
Wow.
I'll see you.
Thank you.
Yep.